A suspicious device found near Endeavor Elementary School in Cville on Saturday. Police say it was either a homemade firework or a pipe bomb device. Nick Evans lives in the area, and he tells KSL-TV they were told to stay behind cover during the detonation.
That's a pretty safe neighborhood, so we were really surprised. We have a couple boys that walk across and go to school every day.
Police are still investigating how this device ended up there, though they don't believe there's any threat to the community. Police say this is a good example of the principle, if you see something, say something. The driver who caused a deadly wrong-way crash in central Utah has been identified. Utah Highway Patrol says 55-year-old Melissa McDonald was driving south in the northbound lanes of I-15 in Millard County when she ran head-on into a truck. A 10-year-old boy was killed, as well as McDonald. 3 other people in the truck were taken to the hospital with serious injuries. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. People in Cuba protesting as the electrical grid fails and widespread blackouts go on for days. The protesters described nights without power and water as the food rotted in their homes. Hurricane Oscar crossed the island's eastern coast with winds and heavy rain. It's now weakened to a tropical storm, but still may complicate restoring some of that power. Your money at this moment, the Dow headed in the wrong direction. We're off 235 points right now, a bit more than 0.5%. The S&P is down 22. The NASDAQ is off this hour by 47. Coming up in just a minute, we'll take a closer look at that forecast, but I can tell you it's quiet and glorious all the way through the weekend. KSL News Time, 9:02.
We hope you have the right app on your phone for news. You probably have dozens.
But the KSL News Radio app, well, it makes our live stream super easy.
Plus, our talk shows are right there as podcast for your workday.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
This is the story of the one. As a warehouse manager, her job is to transform chaos into clarity and to see patterns where others see problems. Luckily, she's got a partner who shares her perspective. Grainger offers over 1 million industrial-grade products, backed by real person support and in-depth online resources, so she can tackle every task with precision and turn potential setbacks into streamlined success. Call clickgrainger.com or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Imagine your team always looking and feeling their best in high-performance technical workwear. Cintas can make it happen. They have garments for almost every job imaginable. And with the Cintas Workwear program, you get freshly laundered garments delivered every week for everyone on your team. Great garments without the bother of laundry. That's a real perk for employees. Find out how Cintas can boost team image and morale. Visit Cintas.com.
Oh, I'm ready!
And get ready for the workday.
Sure, humans can be a little weird at times, but take it from me, I'm a dog. And a person is about the best thing that can happen to a shelter pet. So if you want to learn how you can be that person, get down to your local pet shelter or visit theshelterpetproject.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Did you know 96% of Americans lose an average of $111,000 in Social Security income? And it's because they claim their benefits at the wrong time. Don't lose $111,000 in Social Security income that's rightfully yours. Learn how you could wring every nickel out of your benefits on Retirement Solutions Radio this Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock, right here on KSL. News Radio 1027.
Hey everybody, it's Casey Scott, and I have a podcast called Project Recovery. I talk about my own journey from addiction to a lifelong one in recovery. I'm joined by my good friend and a clinical psychologist, Dr. Matt Woolley.
You know, it's your story, Casey, but we also hear inspiring stories of others who join the show from rock bottom to living a life of recovery.
That's Project Recovery, a show about addiction, but more importantly, it's about recovery. Follow us for free on KSLpodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Time for a look at traffic and weather together. Brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents a gallon. Hopefully quiet out there, Mark.
Well, it looks like some police action in the greater Utah County area, right near the 1400 North Springville off-ramps. It looks like a car was avoiding police there. They've done a pit maneuver, and they'll have him off on the ramp. We'll see if we can get some more details there. Right now, looking at the cameras, traffic is moving well through the area. I don't see any problems here in the Salt Lake Valley either. It's good traffic flow from the north, from the south end of the valley to the north. A little stretch of slower traffic if you're going to go eastbound I-80 from I-15 right there at the I-80 split. Advanced Window Products, factory direct affordable windows. Call today. They're on their way. Financing available. Save now, pay later. AdvancedWindows.com. I'm Mark Christiansen in the KSL Traffic Center.
Well, the forecast I have for you today really is just wash, rinse, and repeat for the rest of the week. Sunny, highs around 70, as well as some light winds, but absolutely no talk of any precipitation for the next week. Right now in Salt Lake City, it is sunny, blue skies, and 52 degrees. From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, I'm Tim Hughes. Listen online at KSLNewsRadio.com, Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Dave and Dujanovic, your morning companions for talk, analysis, and key perspectives on Utah's biggest stories on KSL News Radio.
We are getting some early numbers in from voting across the nation, and I would say it's impressive how many millions and millions of Americans have either already voted by mail or in person early.
We are in. We love it. I think we finally realized, you know what, this is here to stay. We're going to vote by mail. Let's just lean into it, get it done, and then you can just shut your brain off. From there on, you don't have to think about it anymore. You can ignore all the political ads. For that alone, Debbie, I'm going to vote this week. So I can just turn my brain off. It's 9:06. It's time for the launch.
Sequence engaged.
And here are 3 things that Debbie wants you to know.
Countdown. 3.
Well, I was absolutely shocked, Dave, when I brought this up this morning in our morning meeting, and you leaned right into this. More than a dozen food recalls. So, 10:05, we're going to help you check your fridge. Really, if it was just 1 recall or 2 recalls, I don't know that you would be as fascinated by this as I am. But there's a long list of food recalls just in the last few weeks. We got green onions, burgers, chicken salad. Dave, you added up more than a dozen that caught your attention. So we want to know, how serious are these recalls and why so many?
I kind of chuckled because you said there seems to have been a lot recently. So I thought there's got to be, a list of how often this happens. And sure enough, the CDC has this, a food safety list. And I start going through just in the first 21 days of October, there's been 13 recalls. That was just in October. I didn't even look at September.
Countdown. 2.
Billionaire? Is he billionaire Elon Musk?
He's a $250 trillionaire, Debbie.
Well, he's giving away, he says he's going to give away $1 million a day to someone who signs his political action committee's petition. The petition backing the Constitution.
Every day from now until the election, we're giving out $1 million prize. And all you have to do is sign a petition in support of the Constitution. You don't even have to vote. You don't have to vote. You just have to sign a petition saying you believe in the Constitution.
So now facing criticism as questions on the legality of his giveaway start to get raised. We'll get some live legal analysis on Musk's $1 million giveaway at 9:35.
And I want to know if I'm eligible, because I'm all for the Constitution. If I can win $1 million, I want in on this lottery, because I saw them hand over to a lady one of those big, fat, oversized checks that had 1 with 6 zeros. I would love to be holding one of those big, fat checks with my name on it.
Launch countdown. 1.
Well, speaking of millions and millions and millions, got millions and millions and millions of Americans already voted in person and by mail. NBC is clocking at nearly 14 million votes cast across the nation as of now. So we're going to get live analysis on what it means and what it doesn't mean for each presidential candidate.
What it means for me is we have to stop talking about Election Day, because November 5th is the final election day. But for 21 days leading up to it, we can cast our ballot at any time. We receive our vote in the mail, we can fill it out, send it, and it is a done deal. And I think this is the mindset we've got to change in our brains. It is no longer a single day of voting. We are voting for 3 straight weeks in this country, especially here in Utah. So why do we wait to the last day? That's what I do. Is it because I want the sticker?
Dave and Dujanovic.
The launch.
Commence.
Dave and Dujanovic. Special coverage of the top national story.
Dave, you had your take on what this meant to you. What it meant to me is a lot of Americans have already made up their minds. When I saw this number on NBCnews.com, 13,939,434. So that's almost 14 million votes cast already in this nation, likely to go up even more today as county clerk's offices start getting more and more ballots.
We talk about the movable middle, the people that are still struggling. Where should I go? How many people really are at that point? These are two very well-known candidates. There's not a lot of question marks right now in my mind. I would think you could absolutely vote 2 or 3 weeks before November 5th without any problem whatsoever. Now, what happens if you do vote right now and then something catastrophic happens over those 2 weeks, your vote's already cast. It's a done deal. You can't retract it. You can't take it back. You can't get a do-over. Now, what could happen in a couple weeks? Nothing likely, except we were saying the same thing the night before the debate that had Joe Biden perform worse than any debater in history, and he drops out shortly after, and that changed everything. So, yeah, something could happen in the next 2 weeks, but when you cast early, then that takes away at least one option.
So I was curious to break it down by, age and gender and also political party affiliation, and that's exactly what NBC News has done. Would it surprise you at all, Dave, if I told you the over 65-year-olds carry the majority of the early votes?
That actually shocks me
Really?
a ton. Yeah, absolutely, because this is the group that votes the most, right? When you're in your 50s and 60 plus, this is the group that is the most reliable voter.
So thank you for calling me reliable.
Super reliable. You're like the sun rising.
It's the 50 to 64-year-olds who are in second position for the most early votes or cast so far. 30 to 39-year-olds besting your age group, Dave, just by a little bit. So the 40 to 49-year-olds are holding 13% of the early vote. Does that surprise you?
A little bit, just because your 20s and your 30s, you have this ramp up. So the lowest voting group is obviously the folks in their teens and early 20s, and then it creeps up. I would have thought my 40 to 49 demographic would have performed better than the 30s, the 30-somethings.
I want to keep this in context. We're at the earlier stages of early voting. This is going to change on certainly on a day-by-day basis. But we're just taking an overall view right now of where things stand a couple of weeks out from actual election day. More females than males. Half of the early voting has been done by females, 42% males. And then let's break it down quickly, Dave, by party registration. Early voting, 46% of Democrats are involved in this early voting number, 29% of Republicans.
The Republicans is the one that stands out to me, is how committed are Republicans to voting and voting early, because typically this has been the party that has championed a single day voting, show up in person, and that I think has been very counterproductive and has added some doubt into and President Trump, former President Trump, has talked often about the problems with mail-in voting. So I think Republicans largely have been reticent to fully lean in to mail-in voting. So any number that you see creeping up for Republicans is a step forward in favor of mail-in voting.
Let's go deeper, take a deeper dive in what it means and what it doesn't mean for each presidential candidate when it comes to early voting. We get political insider and KSL at Night host Adam Gardner on the line with us next.
Dave and Dujanovic.
Dave and Debbie go out of their way to make sure you hear all sides of a story.
They're working the phones to get several viewpoints on for you.
Hi, it's Tim and Amanda. We get you the full story, too.
We have you covered on KSL News Radio.
falls right on time.
No freeze warnings, but it's going to be very, very cold overnight in many of those higher elevations.
Days are shorter and nights are cooler. Better to just roll with it. Get an updated KSL forecast every time you jump in the car. Just pop on KSL News Radio at 102.7 FM.
Let's talk about fireplaces, because finally we got some cold weather in October, and we're switching it over from AC to heater. Well, the fireplaces that you're thinking about maybe investing in can be provided by Mountain Home Services.
That's right. We're so excited that Master Electrical Service has joined up with Mountain Home Services. And that's one of the many things they can do is help you pick out that beautiful new gas fireplace just in time for winter. But there's also your electrical needs that need to be met. Like maybe you need an outlet changed or you need a new EV charger. They can do that too.
And then you've got the HVAC from Mountain Home Services. They installed my furnace years ago. They've done the service, or did I say the furnace? Furnace and service. They do it all. Make sure you check out Mountain Home Services. Again, they have expanded out into fireplaces as well. All you have to do is go to their website, mountainhomeutah.com, to learn more, mountainhomeutah.com.
Or give them a call, 801-543-2222. That phone number again is 801-543-2222.
This is Derek Overstreet of the New Millennium Group and host of Stop Working and Start Living Radio. If you're close to or in retirement and you don't have a tax plan, call us right now, 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370. Listen, our country's been spending like never before, and the tax bill is coming soon. If you need an income tax strategy and a financial plan that will get you through the rest of your life, give my team a call, 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370. If you want an investment plan that allows you to keep more of your gains and pay less taxes, give us a call, 888-999-6370. My team specializes in the type of plan that will get you retired 3 to 5 years sooner than you thought possible. So, get a no-cost tax analysis by calling 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370. My team is standing by now.
Hi, Doug Wright here with one more little experiment you can do at home. In a pan of water, all you have to do is stir in limestone, calcium, magnesium particles, and then heat that whole mess up on the stove. And you know what, on second thought, not such a good idea, because limestone, calcium, and magnesium particles heated in water will clump and stick to your pan like concrete, which incidentally is exactly what's going on inside your water heater. Think about it, limestone, calcium, magnesium, that's what makes hard water hard. And trust me on this, if you live in northern Utah, your home has hard water. So call Connecticut of Utah. I'll give you the number in a moment. They'll test your water's hardness for free, and they'll show you the patented design features that make Connecticut water softeners work better than any other. Connecticut of Utah, an authorized Connecticut dealer. To learn more, call Connecticut. It's 801-576-8600 or log on to softwaterutah.com and call now while it's on your mind.
This is the story of a very special woman. Just a few knew about her superpowers. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Febreze. So my home is also my office. And before I can focus, every room's gotta be clean. That means tidying up and spraying my Febreze Air Mist. Ooh, that's fresh. Febreze Air Mist scents are all high quality. They fight any weird funk, and they give my air an instant boost of freshness. So not only does my home smell good, I feel good too. After I Febreze, it's time to start my day.
Breathe happy, Febreze, la 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 la.
Look, I was out of the office last week, and what was so nice were these text alerts that I was getting from my friends here at KSL News Radio with the latest stories, the breaking news, all the things that we're covering, like on the Dave and Dujanovic show. So stay in tune with what's happening in our community by signing up for those same text alerts that I get every single day. All you need to do is text the word news to 57500, news to 57500. We'll sign you up, and remember, it's free.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Tim Hughes. First, a record high number of people are attending Utah Valley University this year, with over 46,000 students currently enrolled. Second, crews are still working on containing the Yellow Lake fire. Good news is it hasn't grown significantly in the past few days. It's still just over 33,000 acres, and we're told this morning 37% contained. And third, a woman from Heber City is in custody after an armed carjacking at Bridalveil Falls. Heather Leanne Murray is accused of forcing 4 BYU students out of their truck before trying to drive it across the Provo River. We're going to look for a high today of about 70 degrees, and right now in Salt Lake City, it's 52. Let's get you back to David Dujanovic on KSL News Radio.
Dave and Dujanovic. Dave and Dujanovic. Dave and Dujanovic. Special coverage of the top national story.
And our top national story is the 14 million early votes cast across the nation, either by mailing in the ballots or in person. And what this says to me is that over the next couple of weeks of campaigning, Dave, at least for 14 million Americans, it won't matter what either candidate says because they've already made up their minds.
I do love that. I hadn't realized this moment that if I vote right now, I get to ignore every political ad and drama that pops up over the next 2 weeks because ballot is cast. You can't do anything at that point. But one thing that really stood out to me is you were talking about these numbers. You said almost 14 million already, done deal, have already sent it in. I wanted to compare it back to 2020, the total votes. It's almost 10% of people have already voted. In the first week, 10% of folks have voted. Depending on turnout, we'll see how that ends up. But that's a shocking number of people that just said, right away, I know exactly who I want, fill it out. I even know which judges I want to retain, and send it in.
So what does this mean? What does it not mean to each of the presidential candidates? Let's get KSL at Night host and political insider Adam Gardner into the conversation. Good morning, Adam.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
What's your take on this 14 million early votes?
Well, I think you guys hit the nail on the head when you said that there's no such thing as an October surprise anymore. If you remember, in every presidential election, there's something that pops out in October about either one of the candidates that could sway the election. With George Bush, that was a DUI, and others have different things pop up. That doesn't really matter anymore because so many people are voting by mail. That's the same in Utah, and that's the same all over the country. Things are looking actually really good for Kamala Harris. It looks like in the swing states of Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Democrats are voting at a much greater numbers than Republicans. So that should be concerning to Republicans. In Pennsylvania, Democrats, 64% of those that have turned in ballots are Democrats. Only 27% are Republicans. The only swing state that really is good news for Republicans is in Arizona, where 43% of Republicans have turned in their ballot, and 36% of those turning in their ballot are Democrats. But Arizona is a weird state because you have Carrie Lake running for Senate, and a lot of Republicans do not like Carrie Lake and did not vote for her for governor, even though Republicans outvoted Democrats in 2020.
Adam Gardner is joining us right now, host of KSL at Night. And as I'm looking nationally right now, about 46% of Democrats have sent in their ballot, 29% for the GOP. But I look at that nearly 30% for Republicans, and it does seem like there's a little progress being made because former President Trump has, I guess, bad-mouthed mail-in ballots for a number of years and talked about the problems with mail-in voting. Is that a good number? Is that an improving number? Or is that what we've seen in the past?
Great question. Overall, I think like in Utah, people are going to vote by mail. It's everyone gets a ballot in the mail. I voted the day that my ballot came in the mailbox. That's just, I have to vote. I can't let it sit on my counter. Where it's been really interesting to see these numbers is in the state of Georgia. If you remember, there was a big-time election for the Senate, 2 seats up in last election in the off years. And President Trump, you're right, he told supporters in Georgia, this thing is fake anyway. Why even vote? Don't use your mail-in ballot. And I believe that cost Republicans the Senate and Georgians 2 Republican senators. So now we're seeing those numbers really interesting. 49% of those that have turned in ballots are Republicans and 46% are Democrats. But the larger number here is 1.425 million ballots have been turned in Georgia. That's a huge number, and it shows that most of the state is already voting. And so we're seeing that President Trump's words, it doesn't look like people are actually taking that for granted. This is combined with vote by mail and voting in person. So all of the rumors that we heard for years that there was this voter suppression in Georgia has not turned out to be the case. It seems like everything is voting. The voting is going very smoothly in the state of Georgia. That's good news for Republicans. However, that is a normal taken for granted Republican state usually, and so they need to make ground in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, in Wisconsin, in Minnesota. Right now, in the early stages, it does not look like they're doing that. President Trump needs to pick up the pace and visit those states religiously. He needs to live there these next couple of weeks until Election Day.
Adam Gardner, of course, KSL at Night host, also political insider, on the line live with Dave and I right now, talking about the early voting turnout. Nearly 14 million. Of course, that number, for context, will likely go up by the day. So this is just a snapshot in time of what's happening today. I want to get into the gender, female and male early voting. More females turning out right now than males, but still, that it's an impressive number. Do you make anything of that at all?
So it's hard to know where they're actually voting from. If they're women voting in the cities, they're going to be voting heavily Democratic, usually in the suburbs or rural areas. That was good news for Republicans if women were voting at higher numbers. What we've seen over the last few years, however, is that Democrats and Republicans are kind of switching their base of support. And so suburban women, especially suburban white women that have normally gone for Republicans, are moving to Democrats. And African Americans, Hispanics, usually in lockstep with the Democratic Party, are switching more and more over to the Republican Party, as you can tell by Harris and Obama making overtures to African American men to please get out and vote for Harris, to do their duty as black men and vote for Harris. And you should, as Democrats, you shouldn't have to be doing that. And as Republicans, you shouldn't have to be going after suburban white women. But that's exactly what's happening. So these numbers are interesting, but we can't tell exactly where they're coming from. And because of the party base of support switching over the last few years, it's going to be hard to determine what that means, even for just a snapshot today.
When I'm looking at some of the age demographics, obviously we've seen the get out and vote, rock the vote, trying to gather, get some momentum from the young kids. But it looks like 18 to 29, only about 12%. But that's not far off from the 30-somethings and the 40-somethings that are at 13 and 14%. Is that young age group? Are you seeing anything in these numbers? Are they going to show up any more in this election than they have in the past?
Well, your 12% number for 18 to 29-year-olds is those that have requested these mail-in ballots. Those that have actually cast votes are about 5% of the total that have come in. And honestly, that's great news for Republicans. You do not want the 18 to 29-year-old demographic voting in large numbers. And we've seen, if you could just picture this, we're using that word snapshot a lot, but on college campuses, it's way more liberal, way more Democratic, way more pro-Palestine, protesting against the Israel and the Middle East. These are the Democratic hardcore young voting blocks, and these are what you typically expect in young people in college campuses, more radical and left. And so the Republicans do not want those people to vote. I am surprised, however, that the 30 to 39 year-old demographic, that number seems very, very low to me. And I think that a lot of the millennials are just feeling really bummed out about the political process because it's not maybe representing either side. Where we're seeing the most is those that are 40 to 49 or 65 and over. That those are voting in large numbers. That's how it usually is. And those folks are really camping out on either side for Kamala Harris or Donald Trump, and they're going to be the stalwarts in this election to watch.
As they always are. Adam Gardner, thank you so much for joining us, host of KSL at Night.
I just got word that in our 11 o'clock hour, we will be checking in with Salt Lake County Clerk Lanny Chapman to see how early voting is going here. On the home front. Straight ahead, incentive to sign Elon Musk's $1 million giveaway to sign a petition in Pennsylvania. Dave has to move to Pennsylvania now. He's already packing up his bags. What the petition is all about, and we're going to get legal analysis on the offer to pay next from our very own Greg Skordas.
9:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Tim Hughes. Let's look at some of our top stories this half hour. Multiple people needed help after getting hurt enjoying the outdoors this weekend, including a mountain biker in Washington County and an ATV rider up Spanish Fork Canyon. And crews could stay busy with temperatures climbing back into the 70s this week.
We'll be riding a solid 7 to 10 degrees above the normal mark for the next 7 days at least.
KSL meteorologist Matt Johnson says we're also going to be entering another dry spell. Matt says our next best chance for a substantial storm isn't until the end of the month. Now our top national stories this hour from ABC News. A new law requiring a copy of the 10 Commandments in Louisiana classrooms is in court today.
One of the biggest backers of Louisiana's new law is Governor Jeff Landry.
If you want to respect the rule of law, you got to start from the original lawgiver, which was Moses.
Organizations like the Freedom from Religion Foundation argue that
our nation was the first to separate religion from government.
The foundation's Annie Laurie Gaylor. State officials will defend the new law before a judge who will decide whether it should be put on hold while lawsuits against it continue. Jim Ryan, ABC News.
Your money at this moment. The negative territory movement continues this hour. The Dow down now 389 points. We're closing in on a full percent there. The S&P is off 39. The NASDAQ down 95, which is about 0.5%. Coming up, what you see is what you get for weather. Not just today, but for the rest of the 7-day period. We'll take a closer look next. KSL News Time, 9:32.
It's a priority for us at this station to bring you all sides of a story and to talk about the news fairly, completely.
Get all the facts and be really aware. Utah's Morning News with us, Tim and Amanda.
Weekday mornings 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
When I started Salt Lake City Fat Loss back in February, I can't believe it's been more than 8 months. It was because I had been hanging on to too much weight for too long, and I had tried to lose it on my own. And they said, listen, research has shown that when you join a program, the results are tenfold. They're so much better than you trying to do this on your own. So when I started Salt Lake City Fat Loss, I paid for the program, folks. So this isn't just something that was given to me for free. So what I notice is when you pay for something, you're held more accountable. That's why I'm grateful. And I tell people, hey, listen, I know it might cost you a little bit, but I noticed that there was no way I was cheating on the plan because I'd paid money to do this. This was what I chose to do, so I stayed on the plan, and then I saw incredible results. 57 pounds in 60 days, and I think this might work for you. So check it out. Results vary for everybody. I get it. But go ahead and reach out to Salt Lake City Fat Loss by going to their website, slcfatloss.com. That's slcfatloss.com.
When you want a brand new kitchen, there's nothing to it. There's a brand new way to do it. 3-day kitchen and bath.
James talks about his experience with 3-day kitchen and bath.
My wife and I had been talking for several years about getting our kitchen and bathroom remodeled. We'd had some bids actually been made. The thing that always put us off was that they were talking about 2 or 3 months to get all this work done. We heard about 3-day bath and kitchen. We thought that we'd give it a try. They spent 3 days on one of our items and 4 days on another, and the cost was about the same thing as all of the people gave us 3-month estimates for. They went out of their way to make sure that we were satisfied with everything when the job was finished. There's simply no question about the idea that they want satisfied customers and they want people who are pleased with their work.
It's about time.
3 days or less
at 3 Day Kitchen and Bath.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's Donald Pay app. Save up to 20 cents a gallon. Beautiful day out there, isn't it, Mark?
It sure is, Tim, and Drive would be in store for a beautiful day like today, and you can do it on the open highways and byways of this great state of ours. I don't see any problems. 215 here in the Salt Lake Valley in great shape. I-15 itself, stretching from Ogden to Salt Lake in Davis County, Utah County, same situation there. Now, in Utah County, you still have that police activity on the off-ramp of 1400 North in Springville. That's a southbound off-ramp. And an accident on the surface street here in Salt Lake, 114th South, Redwood Road, keeping things just a little bit tight through that area. Revere Health encourages you to schedule your preventive care and annual checkups to help increase the potential to live your most healthy and active life. Revere Health, your partner in health, your partner in life. Mark Christiansen in the KSL Traffic Center.
We've got a mini warming trend going on here. 70 today, 72 tomorrow, 75 on Wednesday. And Matt said earlier this morning that the next best chance of significant precipitation, end of the month, which is, of course, Halloween. Mom and Dad thrilled to hear that. Sunny in Salt Lake City this hour and 53 degrees. From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, I'm Tim Hughes. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com, Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Dave and Dujanovic, your morning companions for talk, analysis, and key perspectives on Utah's biggest stories on KSL News Radio.
The world's richest man giving away $1 million a day to one lucky registered voter in Pennsylvania.
Every day from now until the election, we're giving out $1 million prize. That is, and all you have to do is sign a petition in support of the Constitution. It's very straightforward. You don't even have to vote. You don't have to vote. You just have to sign a petition saying you believe in the Constitution, which if you already believe in the Constitution, you're just signing something you already believe, and you can win $1 million. That's awesome.
All right. So Elon awarded a second $1 million check yesterday, giant oversized check at a Trump rally in Pennsylvania to a woman named Christine Fischel.
Is there anything you want to say?
Well, thank you so much for, I truly believe everything you're doing.
Yeah.
Truly, you don't need to be doing it. I know a lot of us feel the same way. Your wealth and responsibility you are using to save speech, and we just all appreciate it. We really do. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
When I first heard about this, Deb, I couldn't help but think, this is the kind of pageantry that is typically safe for primetime TV game shows.
Ready to play?
I'm ready.
Audience, are you ready? Yeah, we're ready. Let's play Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Here we go.
That's all we're missing. We're missing Regis Philbin. That's about it. But we do complain all the time about money and politics. We don't know where these billions are coming from. We hear words like dark money. At least with Musk, we know exactly where the money is coming from, where it's going. He's spent almost $70 million and poured that into Trump's campaign so far. And he's got another, $14 million on the way through this petition.
And this is happening in Pennsylvania, where Governor Josh Shapiro, he's also former attorney general for the state of Pennsylvania, said this about the $1 million giveaway, and he said it on NBC's Meet the Press.
I think there are real questions with how he is spending money in this race, how the dark money is flowing, not just into Pennsylvania, but apparently now into the pockets of Pennsylvanians. That is deeply concerning. Look, Musk obviously has a right to be able to express his views. He's made it very, very clear that he supports Donald Trump. I don't, obviously we have a difference of opinion. I don't deny him that right. But when you start flowing this kind of money into politics, I think it raises serious questions that folks may want to take a look at.
So you think it might not be legal, yes or no?
I think it's something that law enforcement could take a look at. I'm not the Attorney General anymore of Pennsylvania. I'm the governor, but it does raise some serious questions.
Joining us right now is KSL legal analyst Greg Skordas. Greg, what do you make of this?
Well, I agree with the governor that there's something wrong with it. Certainly, federal election law does not allow a person to be paid, excuse me, for a vote or for signing on to a petition. This is sort of a commitment, I guess. I don't know. I'm sure that Musk has vetted it with his attorneys and has probably figured out that there's some loophole to federal election law, but it certainly feels bad. I mean, there's something about it that just doesn't feel right at all.
So are you suggesting just at first blush that you have some concerns over the legality of doing it this way?
I do. I really think if someone looks at the minutia of it and looks closely at it, that they're probably going to find that there's something illegal about it. Now, whether that's going to happen between now and 2 weeks from tomorrow, I seriously doubt. But to me, this is the kind of thing that shouldn't be done in the weeks leading up to an election. It's obvious why it's being done. And to think that he's probably figured out some sort of loophole with federal election law is really troubling, especially as we get down to the last few weeks before the election.
I will say that Elon Musk has been very consistent, especially when it comes to First Amendment free speech. He calls himself a free speech absolutist. He's talked about this for years. He spent $44 billion to buy Twitter because he said he wanted to protect free speech. Can he spend money to promote basically any idea he wants, and specifically when it comes to the First Amendment? Shouldn't he be able to spend money on this?
Yeah, absolutely. And if he is spending money for that purpose, that would be fine. What he's doing, though, is he's spending money on individuals who will support that position. In other words, he's buying favor. He's buying support. And that's where you run afoul of the law. I mean, if he wants to put up ads supporting the First Amendment or any of the people that he's supporting with the election coming up, that's great. But paying individuals who are voters, individuals who are in these difficult swing states right now in the days leading up to an election, just for signing a petition that supports his cause, is where he may very well be crossing the line, Dave. And that's what troubles me in this case.
When we played that little soundbite from Elon Musk, he says, listen, you don't even need to vote. You don't need to vote. This isn't a requirement. Is that the disclaimer that may keep him protected?
That's the disclaimer he thinks is going to keep him protected. And it very well might. It very well might. But they do have to sign the petition. They do have to agree with his position. That's where it crosses the line potentially. Certainly the voting thing, we wouldn't be having a discussion. He wouldn't be that foolish as to do that. But even signing the petition or getting this close to the edge really sort of raises some questions. I mean, even if it's not illegal, Dave, it's certainly, to me, unethical, immoral. It's just not the kind of thing we should be doing.
Who looks into this, Greg? Is this an FEC investigation, or maybe they just open up an inquiry there? Is it FBI?
No, you're right. It would be the Federal Election Commission, and maybe even the Pennsylvania Lieutenant Governor election officials may be taking a look at it itself. If you listen to the governor, he said, well, I'm not the Attorney General anymore, meaning, hey, that there may be some other people that can take a look at this. But, yeah, the FEC and perhaps local law enforcement in terms of, like, the elections officials there in the state of Pennsylvania.
But to be clear, we're not aware that there's any official inquiry into this at this point that I've seen.
Correct. Absolutely. Yeah. You're right. And there may not be. There may not be, especially given that we're only 15 days from the election.
Greg, one thing that comes to mind, and now obviously this $1 million going to one person and a big check, that it's such an eye-popping experience. You know, somebody is awarded $1 million, basically hitting the lottery. But the history of registering people to vote, getting out, trying to entice people to register to vote. We've had Rock the Vote concerts, which are free concerts put on by, very famous bands, and it's a free concert. And the underlying idea is you're going to get registered to vote. So we're fine with giving away free concerts, but not free money?
Yeah, and I understand the dichotomy there, Dave, and I understand what you're saying. Inviting people to a public event that's free and encouraging them to register to vote is just encouraging a person to register to vote, not to vote for a particular ideology or sign a petition that supports a certain position by the individual who's paying you to sign that. That's where it's a little bit different.
I'm just looking at this on, and we got to go, Greg, as you know, but USA Today is reporting that the petition, the website states that the program is open to registered voters in Pennsylvania, Georgia, Nevada, Arizona, Michigan, Wisconsin, and North Carolina.
All the swing states.
Yes.
Swing states. Yeah, exactly.
So Dave's dream of getting that $1 million check that he talked about off the top of the show, unless he moves, which we're not allowing him to do. He doesn't qualify. He doesn't qualify.
Moving to Nevada.
At least according to what I just read on USA Today.
Right.
Greg Skordas, thank you so much. Legal analyst here at KSL, also a host of KSL at Night. Always appreciate your insights on this. We'll continue to follow the story as it develops throughout the day. You can hear the latest this afternoon with Jeff Kaplan on your ride home. He starts at 3 o'clock this afternoon. Straight ahead, a bomb squad detonating a suspicious device at an elementary school in Cville over the weekend. Neighbors who saw the detonation speaking to KSL 5 television.
And at one point, they even asked us to go into the garage and get behind hard surface cover. When it went off, it was a lot bigger bang than we were expecting.
So we asked the Cville Police Department to call the show next to give us an update. What was this device, and do they have any suspects? That's next.
Dave and Dujanovic.
Current events can have a lot of moving parts. Our job is to make it easy to keep up.
You're part of a bigger world, so spend 15 or 20 minutes here and be part of it.
Join us weekday mornings between 5 and 9 on KSL News Radio.
Tim Jr. here from RGS Exteriors. Did you know that we offer 3 distinct styles of gutter protection? Each one meant to handle a specific leaf problem. You might not even know there are different styles of gutter protection, but there are. And if you pick the wrong one, it could be a huge waste of money. Now, the big gutter guard companies won't tell you this. They try to sell you a one-size-fits-all gutter guard. And it could be completely wrong for the amount and types of trees and leaves you have. Not RGS Exteriors. We understand which kind of leaf problem needs which kind of gutter guard. We'll do an in-depth evaluation to assess the types, locations, and numbers of trees in your yard. Based on that data, we match your home to the right gutter guard. So don't risk wasting money on the wrong gutter protection. For a free evaluation and estimate, call RGS Exteriors at 801-280-3110 or visit rgsexteriors.com. That's 801-280-3110 or rgsexteriors.com.
At KSL News Radio, we have a 30-year legacy of honoring Utah teachers, but we can't do it without your help. Please tell us about an important teacher in your life on the KSL Teacher Tribute Wall, presented by Cypress Credit Union. Each month, one lucky teacher wins a $500 gift card from Cypress Credit Union, a $250 gift card to Harmon's, plus season tickets to Hale Center Theater. Say thanks to your teacher today at kslnewsradio.com/teacher from Cypress Credit Union and KSL News Radio.
Hey, this is Dan, the laptop man from PC Laptops. Imagine struggling with a slow, outdated computer that takes forever to load anything, that randomly freezes up and is filled with viruses and malware.
Now picture yourself with a powerful desktop or laptop that runs smoothly and efficiently, making your work and entertainment seamless. Take one home today. The new 2025 S1 desktop or SM3 laptop for only $999. You heard that right, $999. You get a blazing fast processor, 16 gigs of RAM, and over a terabyte of blazing storage for $999. What else do you get? Lifetime service warranty, and we have 12 months special financing on approved credit. Hurry in right now because supplies are limited, because at PC Laptops, we love you. Just check us out at PCLaptops.com. $999, PCLaptops.com.
Don't you deserve healthcare you can count on? Well, you can count on United Healthcare with Medicare plans that fit your life today and as your needs change tomorrow. You can enjoy reliable coverage and low out-of-pocket costs with a Medicare Advantage plan from United Healthcare. United Healthcare Medicare Advantage plans. Made for Utah, trusted everywhere. The Medicare annual enrollment period ends December 7th, so go to uhc.com/Medicare today.
Hey, what are you doing up on the step stool?
About to clean these light fixtures. The whole family's coming over, and if there's even a speck of dust in the house, my abuela will find it.
Here, I got a Swiffer duster to help with that.
A Swiffer what?
A Swiffer duster. It has this cool extendable handle that reaches 6 feet to get high and low, with fluffy dusters that easily trap and lock dust.
So, no more step stool?
No more step stool.
Easily trap and lock dust from hard-to-reach places with the Swiffer duster. Love it or your money back.
Lowe's knows that to win the job, pros need the best prices. That's why only at Lowe's, MVP's Pro Rewards members can get a volume discount on eligible orders as low as $1,500 at the Pro Desk. That means you get the prices you need to start any job, small or large. Because Lowe's knows pros. Valid in-store only. More terms and restrictions apply. Visit Lowe's.com/terms or Pro Desk for details.
Exciting news, Master Electrical Services has joined Mountain Home Services.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Tim Hughes. First, rescue teams were busy helping multiple people who got hurt enjoying the outdoors this weekend. They could stay busy with these temperatures climbing back into the 70s. Second, the Davis County Bomb Squad was able to safely detonate what police say was a homemade firework or pipe bomb device found by a Cville elementary school over the weekend. And third, a Louisiana law that would require classrooms to display the 10 Commandments is in court today. We'll shoot for a high today of 70 degrees with all that sunshine, and right now in Salt Lake City, it's 52. Now back to Dave and Dujanovic on KSL News Radio.
Dave, and Dujanovic.
I was tracking the news over the weekend, and I saw our colleagues at KSL5 Television reporting, Dave, on the bomb squad in Cville at an elementary school, detonating what was referred to as a suspicious device found at the elementary school.
You just hit all the key words that piqued my interest. Bomb Elementary School, Cville, because my wife works at an elementary school in Cville. So when I saw this, immediately I started searching which school was it. And now, obviously, I want to know, you've got to know the history of what was this? How big of a bomb was it? How dangerous was it? What kind of leads do you have?
Yeah, we'll speak to the Cville Police Department in just a few seconds. This happened Saturday afternoon. They get out there to report of a suspicious homemade, it's either a firework, according to the press release, homemade firework, or a pipe bomb device. We'll get more information on that in just a minute. And you asked what elementary school, Endeavor Elementary School in Cville. In fact, KSL5 Television's Kara Bracken stopped in to speak to some neighbors, and she spoke to a man by the name of Nick Evans, who watched the detonation take place.
And at one point, they even asked us to go into the garage and get behind hard surface cover. When he detonated, he was like, "Fire in the hole." When it went off, it was a lot bigger bang than we were expecting. That's a pretty safe neighborhood, so we were really surprised.
Noelia Sarmiento joins us right now from the Cville Police Department, the public information officer. And thank you for joining us. Walk us through a little bit more of the specifics that we do know. Was this a pipe bomb, or the suspicious homemade firework? That was something brand new that I just heard was a possibility.
Well, thank you for having me. So as of right now, all we know is that Cville police responded to a report of a suspicious homemade firework and or pipe bomb device that was located on the southeast side of Endeavor Elementary School at approximately 3:53 p.m. Due to the potential danger and threat of the call itself, we called the Davis County Bomb Squad on scene, and once they arrived on scene, they safely detonated the device, and it was collected for further analysis and investigation.
Oh, so you're still waiting on that analysis to come back to figure out what it was exactly, Noelia?
That is correct. Yes,
okay.
Ma'am.
Is there any concern that there are other devices, or is this just a one specific device in this one place at Endeavor Elementary?
So, as you know, we're taking precaution. We've had our officers thoroughly canvass the surrounding areas of the school and the neighborhood for any additional devices. We've also ran a canine around the school that specializes in detecting any explosive materials, and we haven't had any other indications of any other additional devices.
Any suspects, or what are you looking for from the neighbors?
As of right now, we do not have any suspect, but we are asking the public, if they have any information or any potential footage of the incident that occurred on the 19th, to please give us a call. We currently have detectives out on scene right now trying to collect more information from the community.
Okay, we're speaking live right now with Noelia Sarmiento. She's with the Cville Police Department, the public information officer. We asked Cville City PD to call in because of what was discovered outside of an elementary school, Endeavor Elementary School, over the weekend. Happened at about 4 o'clock. It looks like on Saturday afternoon is when police were called to the area, and the Davis County Bomb Squad then got to the scene and detonated the device. It's now being tested to figure out what it was. It's been either maybe a pipe bomb or a homemade firework. And you've checked around the school. Everything appears to be safe right now. And our Dave had said maybe because his wife teaches up in that area, school is out for the day. Are kids going back to school there, or is school out, Noelia?
I'm not really sure. I know that they're on fall break right now.
Okay.
So I believe they will be coming back tomorrow. But as far as we know, yeah, they'll be back tomorrow.
And no one hurt during the detonation or the discovery of this device?
That is correct. Nobody has been hurt.
So do we know, does it appear that it was planted or more discarded?
Well, that's what we're working diligently to answer these questions. Like I said, we have detectives out there trying to collect more information so that we can answer some of these questions.
Was there any damage, and how close was this to the school? Was there any damage to the school?
No damage to the school, and it was on the exterior southeast of the school.
Well, keep us posted. Thank you so much for calling us up this morning and giving our listeners an update on what's going on in Cville. And, of course, we'll continue to track the developments as new details are released throughout the day right here at KSL News Radio. Jeff Kaplan's Afternoon News at 3 o'clock will be following up on this story.
Now, obviously, what the investigation shows is going to be crucial, because if we're talking about truly a pipe bomb that was discarded or that it was planted next to the elementary school, that's a totally different story than if this was just some suspicious homemade firework that perhaps kids were running away or being, I'm forming this whole story in my mind of they're being chased and they're just trying to discard it because they know they shouldn't have this homemade firework. So I think it'll be crucial to figure out which of the two. Was this just some people that are maybe in their basement creating these homemade fireworks, or was this more malicious and someone was building a pipe bomb?
Yeah, we'll figure it out as details get released and as that testing comes back. Straight ahead, Dave really leaned into this story. I was a bit surprised when I brought up that, have you seen there's another food recall? Like, I'm a food recall watcher. I watch food recalls when they come out, and then I run to my fridge or my pantry, and if it's on the recall list, I toss it. How about you?
I've never looked or paid attention to recalls. Like even my car recalls, I ignore half of them.
Well, let me give you a taste of what's in store in our 10 o'clock hour, because we're going to take a deep dive into the long list of food recalls that have just happened within the last couple of weeks. We've got things like green onions, burgers, chicken salad. There's almonds, nuts, other things that are all part of either a warning or a food recall. And what we're trying to figure out is, like, what's going on, why it's happening, and what to do about it and how seriously we should be taking this. So straight ahead, we're going to dive into the list of food recalls. Dave says there's been 13 in the month of October. I've got the list in front of me. We'll start going over it in the 10 o'clock hour. And then at 10:20, we'll get a food expert from USU Extension Service calling the show to tell us, like, what do we do? Run to our fridge? Toss the food? Do we take it back to the store? That's in the 10 o'clock hour.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 10 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. A woman who's accused of killing her husband in his sleep will appear before a judge today. KSL News Radio's Michael Commit has more.
Jennifer Gledhill is accused of killing Matthew Johnson in their Cottonwood Heights home in late September. The two were moving towards a divorce, and police were first notified after Gledhill confessed to a man she was having an affair with. She faces multiple charges, including obstruction of justice and possession of a controlled substance.
That's a hearing scheduled to begin at this hour. The University of Utah's offensive coordinator, Andy Ludwig, has stepped down from his position with the Utes. The announcement comes after the football team's loss to TCU this weekend, the third consecutive loss for the Utes. Ludwig was with the Utes for 10 seasons, and no replacement has been named. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. The governor of North Carolina is asking former President Trump to stop spreading misinformation when he visits that state today. Governor Roy Cooper and FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell went to Asheville this morning to talk Hurricane Helene recovery. There are still 26 people unaccounted for in the areas with the most flood damage. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average down now 296 points on the day. The NASDAQ is down about 25. And our KSL weather looks like we'll get beautiful, sunny, and relatively cool weather. That's next. KSL News Time, 10:01.
Here's a way to get breaking news updates anywhere you go.
At the store or in a work meeting, you can get breaking news on your phone.
You can quickly read it, swipe, or click for more. It's super discreet, super fast.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
Everywhere you look, things are getting more expensive. So at Consumer Cellular, we're lowering the price for those 50 and up. Now you can get unlimited talk, text, and data for $30 a line when you buy two. That's just $60 a month for 2 unlimited lines. So if you're 50 and up, make the switch and save. Come on, you've earned this. Call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com today. Requires 2 lines of service, age validation, and credit approval, subject to system and area limits, taxes, and other fees apply.
Febreze. So my home is also my office, and before I can focus, every room's gotta be clean. That means tidying up, then spraying my Febreze Air Mist. Ooh, that's fresh. Febreze Air Mist scents are all high quality. They fight any weird funk, and they give my air an instant boost of freshness. So not only does my home smell good, I feel good too. After I Febreze, it's time to start my day.
Breathe happy, Febreze, la 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 la.
Often, we see people we don't know, sleeping on the sidewalk or maybe asking for money. You may think to yourself, wonder how this person ended up in that situation. The rescue mission of Salt Lake changes people's lives and helps them become the person they were truly meant to be. They just need a little help to get back on track. The rescue mission relies 100% on public support and receives no government funding. Those small donations can add up to transform someone's life. In as little as 12 months, a person can move from homelessness to stability, gain an education and life skills mentoring, to employment, housing, and self-sufficiency. Additionally, the rescue mission provides daily meals and offers an emergency shelter every night, plus hygiene, clothing, and a warming center, all to help those on the street get off the street and change their life. Visit Rescue Mission of Salt Lake now. That's rescuesaltlake.org. because a little donation goes a long way.
Hi, this is Doug Wright with yet another great experiment you can try right there at home. I want you to take 4 bags of water softener salt. Lift 3 of the bags with one hand, good luck on that, and 1 bag with your other hand. Now, if you're like most people, you'll probably find that 3 bags of salt weigh about 3 times as much as 1 bag of salt. And that's an important thing to keep in mind when you're shopping for a water softener. You see, Connecticut of Utah, an authorized Connecticut dealer, their water softeners are so well designed, they use only 1 bag of salt for every 3 that other water softeners use. Now, I can't speak for you, but I'm not a fan of lower back pain, and as our little experiment has hopefully demonstrated, carrying that 1 bag of salt, it's a lot easier on your back than carrying 3. That's just one of the many reasons you should look into water softeners from Connecticut of Utah, an authorized Connecticut dealer. To learn more, call Connecticut of Utah, 801-576-8600, or go to softwaterutah.com.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. And here's Mark Christiansen.
We've got a good traffic pattern underway in the Salt Lake Valley. No problems I-15 north or southbound. Looking at the 215s, they're in great shape as well. I-80 between Park City here and Salt Lake City looks good both east and westbound. I-201 is in great shape if you're headed west towards the Tooele area. Do have a couple of small problems on the surface streets. 114 South Redwood Road, an accident. And it looks like an accident just off the Pleasant Grove off-ramp, holding up the right lane if you're turning to go westbound there. Attention pet parents, tired of being a doorman for your furry friends? Say hello to Utah's own Pet Door Products, your ticket to convenience and freedom. Visit petdoorproducts.com. Mark Christiansen in the KSL Traffic Center.
Temperatures warm back into the mid-70s by Wednesday, then drop into the 60s on Thursday. There's no chance of rain this week. And right now we're at 55 degrees with sunny skies. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Dave and Dujanovic, your morning companions for talk, analysis, and key perspectives on Utah's biggest stories on KSL News Radio.
What do green onions and waffles have in common, Dave?
They better have nothing in common because
Recalls.
you would. Oh, okay. They do have something in common.
Recalls, yeah.
It's a very savory waffle otherwise.
Green onions, waffles, burgers, almonds, chicken salad, chip dip. This is just part of a growing list of food recalls that caught our attention this morning. When I walked into work, one of the first things I asked Dave is, how you feeling?
That I want a waffle and now I can't eat waffles?
Because some of these food recalls are really concerning when it comes to what the contaminant is. And we're going to get into that in just a moment. But the thing you spotted when you started researching this was the sheer number of food recalls caught your attention.
A little bit because you said almost in an offhanded way, doesn't it seem like there's been a lot of recalls lately? Mm-hmm. So I did a quick Google search. I looked at the CDC, and they have a foodsafety.gov. And you go to foodsafety.gov, and it has a list of all the recalls, the outbreaks, and it lists all of the times that this has happened back in October. So I start looking, and there were like 4 on just October 18th alone and a couple on October 11th. I counted it all up, and this is October 21st. Today is October 21st. In those 21 days in October, there's been 13 recalls.
What did you think when you saw that?
That is a staggering number, and I remember waffles. And it's not all frozen waffles. It is a specific brand of frozen waffles that I'm like, it's Eggo or bust for me when it comes to frozen waffles. Oh. So I just ignored those. Well, there were 12 others that I hadn't even paid any attention to.
Like the green onions.
I have purchased green onions.
Yeah, the problem with me for green onions is, once I bring them home, I usually chop them right away and I put them in a separate container because I just want to be able to grab and go, throw them on a salad, throw them in tacos. So I don't know what brand of green onions I bought. That label is long lost at the bottom of the trash bin. So let's go over some of the food recalls. And in just a few minutes, we're going to get a food safety expert live on the line with us from Utah State University Extension Service to talk to us about, how seriously we should take these, what are the possible side effects, and so much more. So 1,271 cases of green onions. Fortunately, when I read the list, at least fortunately for us, it does not appear that any of these green onions, the cases of them, made their way to Utah, but they could potentially be contaminated with salmonella.
I thought it was interesting when you were describing what you do with your fresh vegetables. I have absolute perfect knowledge of every cereal brand that I purchase, every cookie. It is Nabisco Oreo or it is Kellogg's Cap'n Crunch. I know these brands. I have no idea which Honeycrisp apple I'm buying or which green onion. To your point, when it's these fresh foods, the fresh meats, I have no idea who it is. Where if it's on a box or if it's in a can, prepackaged, then I keep track of that. I know whether I want the name brand of this or the store brand of that. But I've never heard of Church Brother Farms.
Yeah, out of Salinas, California. That's where those 1,200 cases of green onions were shipped. Again, I looked at the list. I did not see Utah on the list. How about Treehouse Foods? This is to your frozen waffles, Dave. Voluntarily recalling certain frozen waffles because of potential contamination of listeria. Side effects of listeria. You have a fever, you got muscle aches, you got nausea. Are you sick to your stomach and vomiting? And you know what else? I'm not going to say the rest. But it's potentially really harmful when you talk about those who are pregnant, newborns, older adults. So Treehouse Foods is voluntarily calling waffles. And then we move over to Pepper Jack. Oh, Dave's got his hand up. Yep.
Yeah, I just saw that the waffle brands, they can be found at Target and Walmart, as well as many other places. So if you're buying your frozen waffles from Target or Walmart, then just give it pay a little extra attention to that.
It. Like, look it up. What was that? Foodsafety.gov is the website
you're
using? Yeah,
foodsafety.gov.
That's a good website for this. How about Dakota Tom sandwiches out of South Dakota? Voluntarily recalling Pepper Jack cheeseburger, bacon cheeseburger, and the Gambler. It sounds actually pretty good. The Gambler, due to the burger patty being included in a recall from an outside supplier. So sometimes you've got somebody making, a burger from other ingredients. Anyway, they're looking at a possible listeria contamination with those. Packages of enoki, Dave, you know how to pronounce these words, enoki mushrooms. Possibly because of listeria as well. That's another recall.
I'm a baby Bella mushroom kind of guy, so I don't know the enoki king mushroom.
You don't like the portobello?
The portobello is good.
I'll just tell you right now, portobello are great on the barbie. Great on the barbecue.
You grill your mushrooms?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Make a mushroom sandwich out of that thing. It looks like Typical Latin Food Corp of Miami is recalling some sweet corn pancakes, chapacha de maize. And they're worried about some life-threatening allergic reactions, possibly because of an allergy or severe sensitivity.
Undeclared wheat.
Undeclared wheat in the product.
And this is, in part, what is just so difficult about some of these manufacturing places is they manufacture so many different things, and you could have some cross-contamination. And oftentimes you will see on the label, it will say, this doesn't have nuts, but it was produced in a manufacturing plant where nuts were used. So it depends on kind of your sensitivity to it. If you have an extreme sensitivity to some things, then that cross-contamination can happen. So this is in part what they're saying is there may have been some cross-contamination. They just didn't declare it.
And this is one for you. Lunds and Burls voluntarily recalling 500 containers of L&B Lone Star dip because of potential mold growth contamination. This one was in the Twin Cities, though, nowhere near Salt Lake City. But what's your overall take when you see this, Dave? Is it anything you worry about? I mean, I just want to get the guy perspective on this.
I do look at it in the sense that it would have to be so specific to me. It would have to be like all Oreos, right? And it would have to resonate with me like, oh, that's something I buy. But so often with these recalls, it's not just, and there's not a recall on Oreos. I'm just using Oreos as an example. But if they were to recall Oreos, it's not like, hey, it's all Oreos. It is double stuffed Oreo, cookie batter flavored Oreos.
With a batch number.
Yeah, with a batch number. It's so hyper focused that quite honestly, the chances that I purchased it during this window of time, this specific flavor, is so incredibly rare that it's almost an impossibility. I've never once actually heard of a recall in food that I've noticed that it has applied to me. That's not to say it hasn't existed and it hasn't happened, but not once have I seen, oh, that's the item that I buy.
So let's ask our food safety expert who's calling the show straight ahead. Why? Why so many recalls? And on a scale of 1 to super worried, how worried does Dave have to be about this kind of stuff? That's next.
Dave and Dujanovic.
Here's a trick to podcasting at work and getting all the Utah news you love.
Download the KSL News Radio app.
The podcast for Utah's morning news and Dave and Debbie are right there. Dozens of podcasts a day.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
Number 7.
Intercepted! Tommy passes, picks it off!
That is one lucky number.
The touchdown!
7-0. Congrats to our BYU Cougars. Join the BYU faithful. Listen to Cougar Nation tonight from 6 to 7 on KSL News Radio at 102.7 FM.
At Social Security, we are always thinking of ways to save you time and make things easier. That's why we created My Social Security. Opening a My Social Security account gives you secure access to your personal record and interactive tools tailored for you. You can see if you are eligible to receive benefits, view spousal benefit estimates, and compare retirement benefit estimates at different ages or dates when you want to start receiving benefits. Already receiving benefits? Use your account to change your address, set up or change direct deposit, get a proof of income letter, and more. In most states, you can also request a replacement Social Security card. Save time. Go online. Open a My Social Security account at ssa.gov/myaccount. Social Security. Securing today and tomorrow.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
We've been talking about Renaissance Ranch and with Renaissance Ranch for a long time, and Christine Dixon, one of the founders, is joining us right now. And one of the things I love that you guys do is you get the entire family involved. Why is that so important for you guys?
Look at the research. The National Institute on Drug Abuse did a nationwide study with people in treatment and found that if you can get if they have one support person involved in the treatment process, it increases the likelihood of long-term sobriety by almost 80%. And not only that, addiction wreaks havoc on relationships. And so my husband and I have been involved for about 18 years in facilitating 12-step addiction recovery groups for our church. And we have heard hundreds and hundreds of people say the number one thing that causes relapse often is relationships. It's almost always the spousal or the parental relationship, right? So we know if for our clients to have the maximum potential for success, we have got to educate the family members. So that's why we have a crazy fanatic family program that we're super excited about.
So as a treatment provider for addiction, Christine, is that what makes Renaissance Ranch unique?
I would say so. I would. Well, two things. Number one, we include the spiritual approach. So we include all of the modalities that effective treatment centers use, but we also include the framework of the 12-step model. which is adapted by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It's the foundation of the 12 steps that Alcoholics Anonymous came up with. And we find that people find so much success and hope if they can find a power greater than themselves. At least that's what our alumni are telling us. We have alumni who have been in multiple treatment centers, some of them more than 10 different treatment centers, and they said that is the contributing factor that's helped them finally maintain long-term sobriety.
Christine, I want to continue this conversation, and when we come back, I want to tell you guys a little bit more in detail about these free online classes that Renaissance Ranch offers. Again, this is something that you can attend as many of these classes as you want. It's free. But there is a specificity. There are so many different classes that will apply to you potentially. All you have to do is go to renaissanceranch.com.
Any Hour Services can help you make sure your furnace keeps you warm this winter. Whether you need a tune-up, a repair, or a second opinion about replacing it, call Any Hour Services or visit anyhourservices.com.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, a woman accused of shooting her husband while he slept will be in court today. Second, having cameras everywhere on the highways foiled an insurance scam in New York. And third, the governor of North Carolina is asking former President Trump to stop spreading misinformation about hurricane relief when he visits Asheville today. 55 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. Back to Dave and Dujanovic on KSL News Radio.
Dave and Dujanovic.
Frozen waffles, green onions, chip dip. We're talking about a series of food recalls that have hit the news cycle lately as the FDA and the CDC, the federal government, teaming up to make sure those of us who eat this kind of food run to our fridge, run to our pantry, and make sure that we're not putting our families at risk. And in a second, we're going to talk to a food safety expert about how worried about these recalls do we need to be.
This is a great topic, especially having you in studio, Debbie, because when you were the investigative reporter, you would do this often. You would look into these kind of things in food safety. And when we were discussing this, she's like, I've got the exact, I know where to go. and it's Utah State University. Jose Brando joins us right now. Is an assistant professor, an extension food safety specialist at Utah State University. This is all part of the Department of Nutrition, Dietetics, and Food Sciences. Jose, thank you so much for joining us. To this point, I didn't realize how often food recalls happen. Like, we've had 13 just in October alone. What should I be looking for?
Well, usually food recalls can be complex. Right now we are seeing so much food recalls because how complex can be the food change. For example, we had a food recall at the beginning of the food change. That means that that's going to have repercussion in a lot of different companies, and especially when we are speaking about ready-to-eat food. These days, people are so busy that they are looking for that ready-to-eat food, salads, sandwiches, that kind of food. And just for that recall at the beginning, we are seeing a lot of companies recalling their food. I would recommend people to learn a little bit more about the recalls. Like, we are going to have different kinds of recalls. We are going to have the warning letter, that is when the FDA, USDA send a letter to the company and that's not public. That is like a warning, you need to improve. Then we are going to have the public health alerts, that's going to be to the public. And that's usually what happens before a recall. Okay, be mindful when eating this kind of food because it may be dangerous. And then we are going to have the recalls.
Professor, how concerning are these recalls from your perspective? And some of them say things like they may be contaminated with salmonella. Others say there could be a listeria problem. Should we be concerned enough to throw this food away when we spot a warning?
Yes. Sadly, there is no middle point in food safety. When you have a recall, especially with bacteria like E. coli, Listeria, or Salmonella, that can be really dangerous, especially if you have people that you care and they are more sensitive, like elderly people, immunosuppressed people, kids, and sometimes somebody can be sick and they don't know, so they are more sensitive to these bacteria and they have no idea that they are sick themselves. So yes, as soon as you see a recall, you need to discard of that food. They may be a lower level recall, like a class 3. That is going to be a regulatory violation, like labor liens. In that cases, if you don't have that allergy, that may be fine. But you need to read the recall in those cases.
So if they are like frozen or canned, frozen doesn't affect any of the like E. coli, Salmonella, Listeria. These things aren't killed by freezing?
They are not. Freezing can reduce the number. However, even 1 to 10 bacterium can cause illness. Okay. So you are not going to be safe just by freezing them. And there's stuff that we can do to make sure that we are safer, like always reheating our food, cooking them. But when we are speaking about ready-to-eat food, there's nothing that you are going to do that is going to reduce that risk.
Good
so
point.
If you see a recall, just discard of that food in the way that is indicated in the recall. If there is no indication in the recall, I would recommend to pack that food in a Ziploc bag or similar, throw it away, and clean any surface that was in contact with that food using soapy water and some kind of sanitation method like some wipes, chlorinated wipes or similar.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Jose Brando, who is a PhD assistant professor at Utah State University with the Department of Nutrition. Thank you for joining us. And Debbie, I hadn't really thought about that. If you were throwing something away, he recommended putting it in a Ziploc and then sealing it to keep it from contaminating other places. I hadn't really thought about doing that as well.
When you asked earlier today about the frozen waffle recall, you're like, frozen waffles? Come on, how? There you go.
Yeah.
Throw it away.
Yeah, the freezing doesn't kill the E. coli or the Listeria. That it still can be dangerous.
Well, and he said, indicated that one reason why we're seeing more of these recalls is because some of these companies are using like this one source to supply, different products, and so that's getting into the food supply when they're ready to eat meals. The FDA also saying in an earlier report earlier this year, when news organizations were asking the question why food recalls are on the rise in this country, is that they said that according to an FDA report that our foods are increasingly coming from other countries, some of which do not have the same regulations that we have here. And it also makes it harder for inspectors to trace where the contaminants are coming from.
That's a great point. And then also, depending on where that ingredient comes from, in the supply chain. So if it's something like meat that may be used in a million different ways, perhaps it is packaged and sold, by the butcher, or maybe that same meat is being used in frozen hamburgers that you can reheat, or maybe it's used in chili that is being canned. The meat is contaminated at a very early part of the supply chain, but it can hit a million different products just depending on how often it's used.
Okay, well, hopefully I've changed your perspective on why you should care about food recalls, because when we started this conversation at 7 a.m., I got a little bit of an eyeball roll from you, Dave, and now you know why you need to watch for food recalls. Straight ahead, I want to talk to you about, the return to work. We're hearing more and more companies talk about bringing their employees back to work, that the COVID hybrid work schedule is coming to an end, at least by the first of the year. let me bounce this off you. There's a survey that's been done. We're going to dive into it deeper in just a few minutes. But workers value remote work so much that they would like a 7 to 8% increase to return to the office, to clock in person. What do you think about that, Dave?
I think in some ways it's a fair thing to ask, because if you are hired, and say you were hired as a remote worker and that was the expectation and that was the salary, I saved, when I was working remotely for 16 months, hundreds of dollars a month. Hundreds of dollars a month. Not having to commute.
Okay.
So gasoline, I was saving a ton of money on gasoline. I wasn't eating out, which had become very, very normal for me. I'd go out to eat for lunch, so I was able to eat at home, make my own food, saving on the gas. I didn't have to buy brand new clothes, right, because I'm living in my pajamas as I'm working. So there was a lot that went into it. When I didn't have to go into work, I was saving hundreds of dollars. So I can see, if you're asking that remote worker that maybe had built their lifestyle around it to come back into work, then you need to renegotiate, because that is a significant change in your job.
But wasn't this always meant to be temporary? When we sent you flying out the door, we said, 15 days to crush the curve.
16 months later.
We're going to take a deep dive into this new report that talks about remote working coming to an end. What would you come back to the office for when it comes to a pay increase? Next.
It's 10:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top local story this hour. Multiple people needed help after getting hurt enjoying the outdoors this weekend, including a mountain biker in Washington County and an ATV rider in Spanish Fork Canyon. Crews could stay busy with temperatures back into the 70s this week.
We'll be riding a solid 7 to 10 degrees above the normal mark for the next 7 days at least.
KSL meteorologist Matt Johnson says we're also going to be entering another dry spell. Matt says our next best chance for a substantial storm isn't until the end of the month. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. What appears to be an attempted insurance scam was caught on camera in New York. The car backing into another on a busy highway, and then one person in the car apparently faking an injury. But the victim's dash cam spoiled the scheme.
They were rushing to leave. They were like, well, we have to go pick up our baby. And so basically when I turned around to go check on the car, they just got in their car and left.
Police say they've seen a number of scams like this. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average down now on the day, 330 points. The NASDAQ is down about 30 right now. And our KSL weather looks like sunny skies as far as we can see. That's next. KSL News Time, 10:31.
News doesn't just mean information or dates.
It's the story of our local history being told in real time.
Be a part of the story. This is Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon.
We hope to be a part of your story. We have you covered on KSL News Radio.
Victor deployed for the first time to Afghanistan in 2003. At 4 a.m, my phone rang. They said, I regret to inform you that your husband was wounded in action. Victor sustained a moderate traumatic brain injury. I was doing school full-time, and I was also then caring for Victor. One of the most important elements of caregiving is taking care of yourself. I just didn't want to forget that I also had goals and that I also had a life. What I did is I challenged Victor to meet me halfway. There are almost 6 million military and veteran caregivers across the nation. We have our own journey, and we can fulfill that journey at the same time that we are helping our loved one.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving for a free military veterans guide to navigate your caregiving journey and better care for your loved one and yourself. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
One of my favorite things about Renaissance Ranch is if you have a loved one that is struggling with addiction, and you, the parent or the boyfriend or the girlfriend, are trying to figure out, okay, well, what can I do to help? What can I do to to support this person as they're getting ready. Renaissance Ranch offers free online classes and a number of different kinds of classes. So Christine Dixon joins us from Renaissance Ranch, one of the founders. And Christine, what are some of the classes that you offer? They are free. They're open to the public. For somebody that may want to know, how do I help this loved one?
Thank you so much. Yeah, addiction's a really big problem, and also mental health right now as well. And so we have 11 classes a week that are open and specific for the public. They're online Zoom groups, and our facilitators are amazing. They've been running these groups for years for us, but they are classes for men, women, parent perspective, spouse perspective. We even have a youth class that is wonderful for kids whose parents might be struggling with addiction. I'm so excited about these groups.
Oh, sorry. Let me.
Yeah.
When you said youth group, I assumed it was for kids that are struggling with addiction, but you're saying the kids who have a parent that is struggling. I hadn't thought about that.
Yes, there are so many needs for youth right now. There's just not a lot of help. We have, the founders of AA started the 12 steps, right? And it's so effective and helpful. And they have a program called Al-Anon, which is for family members, which we love these programs. And then they have Al-Ateen. The thing with the Renaissance Ranch is we are not only doing the 12 steps in all of these online groups, but we are also including education. Because we've got to get past that stigma of addiction, and we've got to understand this is a literal brain disease. So for these kids whose parents are struggling, to get in another room, we have 3 youth facilitators who have been in Al-Ateen for 4 years. Their father went through the ranch. He's an alumni. The mother has worked big time in her recovery as well. We just recently started a class for divorce and blended families as well. People who are divorced, they are struggling. They don't have a community anymore. Their attachment is not safe or secure. They really need a safe place to come. We have an incredible couple for that group. We also started recovery online groups, guys. So this is wonderful. We have a men's addiction recovery, women's, and couples. We have 2 different couples relational addiction recovery online groups because we've got to deal with our relationships, right? That's the number 1 cause of relapse. So, and the parent groups are fantastic. If you have a child, my goodness, these parents, I know for me as a mother, I had 2 sons that struggled with a heroin addiction years ago, and it was the scariest thing I've ever been through. And you really need to learn how to be a healthy support, and you need some education as well.
You can learn more about these classes that have been very popular. I know you had more than 1,000 people show up to these classes and per month. So if you're interested, go to renaissanceranch.com.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. And here's Mark Christiansen.
Been a very calm morning, Dan, on the highways. No problems to report right now through the Salt Lake Valley. Freeway speeds are abundant from all the way Point of the Mountain to downtown, and the reverse if you're headed towards Utah County as well. In Utah County, I don't see any problems from Provo all the way through Linden, leading up into American Fork, and over the Point of the Mountain. There's a little bit of a slow traffic pattern, and this is a daily thing, and it really gets annoying. Between on Bangor Highway leading up to the 201, if you're trying to make that transition to go either east or westbound 201 or just over the freeway itself, a little bit crowded at the moment. Mark Christiansen in the KSL Traffic Center.
Well, it looks like we'll see sunny skies all through the week, with temperatures just barely touching 70 degrees later on. Right now, 57 and sunny. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Dave and Dujanovic, your morning companions for talk, analysis, and key perspectives on Utah's biggest stories on KSL News Radio.
A lot of companies are telling their employees, look, hybrid work is over come January 2025. It's time to get back in person to the office. Well, there's a new survey out that gives us some perspective on what employees feel they need in terms of a pay raise when they're called back fully in person and they're no longer working at least part-time from home.
This is very interesting because there has been this swing back and forth where when COVID first started, many of us went home. That was what happened to me. I was sent home for about 16 months, and I was broadcasting from my mom's basement. And when I returned, number one, I was grateful. I much prefer coming to work, even though I've got to commute and I've got to buy my own lunch now instead of mooching off mom. I like the interaction, but it has cost me hundreds of dollars per month more than when I was working remotely.
Why don't you just look at it in reverse? You were able to save hundreds of dollars because you were sent home and you no longer needed to commute or buy lunch. But now it's time to come back in person because it just flows so much better when you do a live broadcast with two people sitting across the room from each other.
True. The work is better, no question, in person. But I told my wife and I, we joked about this. It was like I got a raise when I was working remotely because we were saving enough money that it was noticeable in the family budget.
So companies like, according to CBS News' article that dropped last month on return to work, companies like Amazon, or I should say return to the office, heading back to the office, Disney, JP Morgan, Starbucks, X, which is, of course, owned by Elon Musk, Zoom as well, which became super popular during the pandemic because that's what we were all using to communicate. But saying that there are 7,400 workers who live near a Zoom office are going to be returning to the office to work. So that begs the question, like, how do people feel about it? How do these employees feel about it? How do you feel? You were excited to come back to work.
I was excited to come back from work, but I did feel the financial hit, and we had to budget differently. Mm-hmm. Because I'd been gone long enough, we had kind of absorbed those savings back into the budget. So when I came back to work, we had to figure out, okay, well, it's going to cost me hundreds of dollars more a month. But there's I think a time and a place where remote working is fantastic, and for many people it is essential. So if you are being required to come back to the office, I think it's a fair negotiating point to discuss with your boss, hey, listen, when I was hired and over the last couple of years or so, I have allowed you to maybe not pay me a premium because I was working remotely and I was enjoying those benefits. But now that we've changed and I'm coming into the office, I think that's a very fair line of discussion to talk with your boss and to bring it up and say, hey, listen, things have changed. We should probably address what it's costing and what my salary is now.
Well, there's been some research done on this, and there was a survey conducted in September of almost 95 Americans. They found the typical worker who's worked from home at some point since 2020 said they would require an average of about 7.5% or so more pay to come to the office full time. So they want a pay bump. And in exchange, maybe the employer buys a little happiness. I'm miserable because I have to go back to the office full time, but you can buy my happiness for a 7.5% pay bump. Does that sound about right to you?
That would make a difference, right? That eases the pain if you're able to come in, because I think a lot of us can understand why an employer would want us to come back in. Many people will say it doesn't change my life at all. I can do my job totally, at my desk. It doesn't change anything. But for me, I understood on an intellectual level why they were bringing me back in the office. Is because the product was better.
So this is a Business Insider story that I'm looking at, and they looked at the research and they interviewed a Stanford University economist, Dave, and they said people in their 30s with kids and a university degree said they would need a 10 to 15% raise to come back to the office full time. Well, I'll just tell you right now, people in their 30s with kids, they're needing to pay for childcare. And I'm going to bet childcare has gone up a lot since the pandemic started.
That's a great point. I didn't have any child care that I had to pay for, so that didn't play into my experience at all. But if I was working from home and perhaps not needing that 24/7 child care, I'm thinking more of a little older, if I had a 4, 5, 6-year-old that doesn't need constant attention, then that would absolutely play into it. Now all of a sudden you go from saving a few $100s a month to maybe thousands, more than $1,000 a month when you start including childcare.
If you didn't get a pay bump and you really wanted that pay bump and you were looking at the bottom line, you're realizing I do need a pay bump in order to make it worth it for me to go back to the office, would you dare quit? Would you dare say, I'm done? I'm out? Let's take live calls. 801-575-TALK, 801-575-TALK. Would you quit if you don't get a pay bump to get back to the office? Or you just like me, you're so grateful to have a job, you keep showing up no matter what. Look forward to your live phone calls on this Monday morning, straight ahead.
Dave and Dujanovic.
A lot of us are filling our workdays with podcasts.
When you're working, go to KSLNewsRadio.com.
Click on Dave and Debbie's podcast and pick a topic and story length.
Podcast with Dave and Debbie. Then get to work with KSL News Radio.
Febreze. So my home is also my office. And before I can focus, every room's gotta be clean. That means tidying up, then spraying my Febreze Air Mist. Ooh, that's fresh. Febreze Air Mist scents are all high quality. They fight any weird funk, and they give my air an instant boost of freshness. So not only does my home smell good, I feel good too. After I Febreze, it's time to start my day.
Breathe happy, Febreze, la 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 la.
Want to keep your gas-powered engines running like new? Stable's proprietary formulas are proven by third-party testing to outperform the competition in keeping fuel fresh, preventing corrosion, and cleaning the entire fuel system. With Stable, you can have confidence you are doing the right thing for your engine's long-term health. Just pour into your gas can or fuel tank, then top off with fresh fuel. At every fill-up or when you store, start with Stable. Available where fuel additives are sold.
Hey, when we talk about Renaissance Ranch, it's so often talking about, somebody, a loved one, someone close to you that is struggling with addiction. And it's why I love talking to you, Christine. Christine Dixon is one of the owners of Renaissance Ranch. And your guys' commitment to helping the entire family, not just the person that is struggling with addiction, but the entire family, which is why you offer free online classes. Who qualifies or who can join those classes?
Okay, so all of the adult groups are 18 and over.
Okay.
The youth group is 12 to 17.
And is it anybody in the public? Do they have to have somebody enrolled or part of the Renaissance Ranch program?
Anyone struggling with mental health, addiction, relationships, we welcome everyone.
And they're free classes, right?
You bet. Oh, yes. Our facilitators are doing this as a service. And so this is a program that is just growing. People need hope these days. People need to know how it's hard to distinguish, especially with addiction, the fine line between what's helpful and what's hurtful. And people don't understand the disease aspect of this. We're talking, this is why insurance companies are willing to help pay, is because we know the science backs up that addiction is a literal brain disease, has the power to take away a person's free will. It is a very difficult disease, and people are not bad needing to be good. They are sick, and they need appropriate help, and they need a community to become better. They need
such a great point, because with the struggles, if it's a parent or if it's a loved one, to know where do you set these boundaries and where do you show compassion? And I think that is such a struggle, because there's a time for both, to set a boundary and then also be understanding.
Right, and I think our workbook is the best workbook I have found anywhere on the internet. It's called Healing Through Christ, and it has the 12 steps in it, but it also has a huge recovery appendix. And that's why our classes include the 12-step, but also all of the education that we need as parents or a spouse or children whose parents struggle, we need an education to know how to appropriately encourage our loved ones to get the help that they need.
Christine, thank you so much. These, and a lot of people do sign up for these free classes, right? And they're all over Zoom.
Yes, they're all Zoom. They're all online.
So you can do it from the
Zoom.
comfort of your own home.
Yes, absolutely.
A very safe place. Well, thank you so much. You can find these classes at renaissanceranch.com. And you can, I've seen that. I just go over to the little
the tricky part,
family
you have to
support.
Spell Renaissance right.
There we go.
One and two S's.
There we go. Perfect. Yes. Google will help you out with it as well. You'll throw in Renaissance Ranch. Even with your spelling errors, it'll direct you to it. But yeah, renaissanceranch.com. Check out those free online classes. There's so many for spouses, parents, couples recovery, all
kids,
of that,
youth.
and kids.
Yes, thank you.
A ton of different classes that will be perfect for your family. So if you're interested, go to renaissanceranch.com.
Social Security is with you through life's journey from birth to retirement. As your life changes year to year, so do your needs. For over 80 years, Social Security has helped to meet your needs and is committed to improving access to the services that make a difference in your life. Today, you can verify your earnings, estimate your future benefits, apply for retirement, manage your benefits, and even change your address, all from the comfort of your home. Social Security's online services help put you in control with secure access to your information anytime, anywhere, allowing you to spend more time with family, friends, or simply just enjoying the day. Social Security, securing today and tomorrow. See what you can do online at socialsecurity.gov.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
Tim and Amanda.
One of the big differences, I think, between reading a story online and hearing it from us, Tim, is that, you and I are allowed to share a reaction. We need to be able to say, what in the world were they thinking? So that people listening will know. We feel it too. When we read a story that sounds ridiculous, we're right with you. It sounds ridiculous.
Well, we get caught up, I'm sure just like our listeners do sometimes, in death scrolling on social media. And fact-checking it on your own is tough. The great thing about tuning in every morning and starting your morning with us on KSL is you can count on the fact that when that information comes out of the radio in your direction, it comes from reliable sources.
It's already been fact-checked.
Right. And that's not always easy when you're getting it online. Finding who wrote it, when was it written, has it been updated with the current facts of the day that change sometimes minute to minute, not just day to day.
Utah's Morning News between 5 and 9 on KSL News Radio.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, good weather over the weekend brought out the hikers and the search and rescue teams. Second, a suspected insurance scam was foiled by a dash cam in New York. And third, a judge in Louisiana will decide whether the state can require the 10 Commandments to be posted in every public school classroom. 57 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. Back to Dave and Dujanovic on KSL News Radio.
Dave and Dujanovic.
Would you say, I quit? Would you leave your job if your employer calls you back to the office full-time from your remote work at your home and doesn't give you a pay raise to come back to the office? 801-575-TALK, 801-575-TALK. Look forward to hearing from you live.
I think it would be such a level of bravery to quit a job at any time where you just say, I don't like the way I'm being treated. I think I could find something else. Where that is a level of bravery that haven't really done. I've left jobs before, but it's always been to move up, and it was a very easy move for me. There's never been a situation where I felt wronged or I felt like I was being unfairly treated, and I just walked away. But I think that's the only thing you really have to go against your employer. Your employer has all the power. What he doesn't have is can't force you to come to work. You can always quit.
Dave and I talking about an article that's in Business Insider, and there's a survey of almost 9,500 Americans that they're reporting on. It says the typical worker who has worked from home at some point since 2020 said they would require an average of about 7.5% more pay to clock in fully in person. And we know that a number of large employers are calling all employees back to the office in person within the next couple of months. Companies like Amazon, JP Morgan, Starbucks, telling folks to get back in person. They may have been hybrid, they may have been fully at home, but that's how much employees are saying, hey, I need a pay bump to do this because it's going to cost me more. And if they're in their 30s with kids, they're saying they need a 10 to 15% pay bump. And my take on that was because they need to pay for the ever-increasing price of childcare. We've seen that go up quite significantly since the pandemic.
801-575-TALK. We'd love to hear from you. If you're a remote worker, you've been required to come back. Did you just say yes? Were you able to negotiate a different salary, a better salary? Now you say 10 to 15% by some people, 7% if they have kids. Well, I'm looking at Boeing, and Boeing has had this strike going on, and they're trying to negotiate a 35% wage hike. They said no to 25%. They want a 35% wage increase. So when I look at this, and I see many people asking, we would need a 7% increase. That is not what I would call greedy. That is just saying, let's look at this realistically. And me coming into work is going to cost more than when I was working at home. The dynamic has shifted and changed. 7% feels very reasonable.
One of the things they say in this story, Dave, is that some workers might even flat out quit if they face full-time return to office mandates. Or they'll be unhappy, and perhaps 7 to 8% pay raise would buy their love and their happiness and keep them working. I mean, when an employee quits, especially an employee who has, experience with the company loses that experience. It costs money to hire people. It costs money to train people up. On our text line at 57500, by the way, you can use our text line at any time to send us a text. Listener says, my husband hired a number of engineers while everyone was remote working, and because of it, the pay, because of the particular organization they're working for, the pay isn't super high. So remote working was a big draw. Now they're being called into the office to work, and they're losing people because they're being called back to the office. So that's a problem too. So if you were hired during the pandemic and you were hired as a remote worker and now you're being called into the office, well, that's a shift in what the original agreement was. Maybe you were hired under the understanding that you would eventually be called to the office. But what's the difference in terms of how much you put out money-wise working from home compared to working in the office? Well, there have been some surveys on this. Owl Labs did some surveying on this a couple of years ago, and you spent about $423 a month to work from home on work-related expenses. Office workers spend about $863 a month. Now, that survey's a couple of months old. I always like to remind you, it costs to work. Yeah, you get paid, but it costs you money. You got to dress appropriately. Maybe you need to buy a few supplies to make your life a little bit easier, but it certainly also costs money if you're going to be commuting in because you're going to be pumping gas into your car. Hi, Paul.
Hi. Hi there. So my wife actually, she got hired on a remote position for a company based out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and now they're requiring them to return to the office. Well, obviously, we live in Utah. We don't live in Pennsylvania. So that's not exactly possible. It was a remote position, and they assured it would be a remote forever, but they got a new CEO, and he's all about returning to the office. Well, that's great, but we're not moving.
Yeah.
So every circumstance, as you point out, is going to be unique. Your wife gets hired for a company out of Pittsburgh, and now they're calling everybody back to the office, and you live in Utah. I guess good luck with their new job search, right? I mean, you just don't pick up and move across the country.
No, and if it's one of those high-paying jobs, perhaps, flying and commuting is a possibility. But, I mean, come on, that would be so incredibly rare. I saw an interesting, this is a little bit of a twist on this conversation from Flex Jobs. They did a survey, a work from anywhere survey, and they found that about half of people said they would be willing to take a pay cut to be able to work remotely. And I wonder, as these CEOs are requiring people to come into the office, if that is ever an option where they say, listen, we want you to come back in, but here's the negotiating tactic, where they say, we want you to come in, same salary, everything. But if you stay working remotely, you're going to take a 5, 10, 15% salary decrease. About a quarter of people said they would take a 15% salary decrease to be able to work remotely.
Well, I'm wondering if you continue to work remotely, and what we're hearing from some of these CEOs that are trying to draw people back to the office full time is that you still miss out on the collaboration in the office space. Some of the best ideas are shared while riding the elevator up and down, and so when you're remote, you don't have that opportunity, which some CEOs have cited as a reason to get people back in person together and to also help newer staff.
Yeah,
get caught up to mentorship and get caught up to speed. Straight ahead, Boyd Matheson in studio with us. We've been talking about some record-breaking early voting numbers that are coming in across the country. Boyd with his take on what this means for both presidential candidates. Next.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 11 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. Woman held a truck full of students at gunpoint in her attempt to steal their vehicle. KSL News Radio's Michael Commit reports.
Police say Heather Leanne Murray forced the students out and then stole the truck. She tried to escape deputies by driving across the Provo River, but she got stuck in the waters. Officers from multiple cities soon got involved, and after fleeing on foot, Murray was eventually arrested and is now being held without bail.
And police believe she was likely under the influence. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin is in Kyiv today, the secretary offering U.S. support to Ukraine in its fight against Russia.
Ukraine's success matters to your citizens, to Europe, to the United States, and to the whole world.
Secretary Austin making his fourth visit to Ukraine since the war began. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average down on the day, 280. NASDAQ is also down, but just by 6 points. And our KSL weather, looks like we've got sunshine and relatively cool temperatures through the week. That's next. KSL News Time, 11:01.
You know what's great about KSL's traffic coverage? Trained traffic reporters and real listeners.
Trading information and making the commute safer and faster for everyone.
Every 10 minutes on the nines, we have you covered on KSL News Radio.
In 2024, dating is a disaster. We've been ghosted, breadcrumbed, stuck in situationships. Hi, I'm Debbie. I'm Caitlin. Welcome to our new podcast, Dating at Her Age. Dating has been so dicey for us, so we asked KSL, can we launch an all-new podcast about it?
People use these dating apps. You're not really dating when you're on the dating app.
Dating at Her Age, brought to you by Mountain Home Services. A new episode drops every Thursday on KSLNewsRadio.com.
At Fisher Investments, we may seem like other money managers, but we're different.
What makes you so different than the rest of us?
We ensure clients receive unparalleled service at every step of the relationship.
Tell me more.
Our investment counselors focus on service over sales, prioritizing clients' needs.
How do you make money?
We don't sell any commission-based products. We have a simple management fee based on the value of our clients' portfolio. So we do better when our clients do better.
What about client portfolios?
We get to know each client, their finances, family, health, lifestyle, and more, and then we tailor a portfolio based on their specific goals and needs.
Your clients really come first then, huh?
Yes, we make them a top priority. Our goal is helping them achieve a comfortable retirement.
Wow. Maybe we are different.
At Fisher Investments, we're clearly different. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com.
Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
Everywhere you look, things are getting more expensive. So at Consumer Cellular, we're lowering the price for those 50 and up. Now you can get unlimited talk, text, and data for $30 a line when you buy two. That's just $60 a month for 2 unlimited lines. So if you're 50 and up, make the switch and save. Come on, you've earned this. Call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com today. Requires 2 lines of service, age validation, and credit approval, subject to system and area limits, taxes, and other fees apply.
Tired of hearing scary radio ads about the IRS? Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000 or $500,000, we have a solution. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS with zero risk to you. We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with a BBB. End your tax nightmare today by visiting TRA.com or call 800-583-6681. That's 800-583-6681.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. And here's Mark Christiansen.
Boy, a real pleasant drive for your late morning, early afternoon. It doesn't look like there's any problems on I-15 headed through Weber County into Davis County. No problems in the Salt Lake Valley here. Looking good. 201 westbound towards Bangerter. Bangerter itself in great shape, as well as Mountain View Corridor. The 215s are working quite well also. No problems Utah County as you make your way north or southbound over the point of the mountain. Just a very pleasant cruise for this time of the day. Fall is upon us, and Murdoch Hyundai is offering 1.99% for 5 years on the 2025 Tucson. Murdoch Hyundai in Logan, Linden, and Murray, MurdochHyundai.com. I'm Mark Christiansen in the KSL Traffic Center.
Temperatures warm back into the mid-70s by Wednesday, then drop back into the 60s on Thursday. There's no chance of rain this week. And right now, we're at 59 degrees with partly cloudy skies. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Dave and Dujanovic, your morning companions for talk, analysis, and key perspectives on Utah's biggest stories. On KSL News Radio, Dave and Dujanovic have inside sources.
Boyd Matheson in studio with us right now. Of course, you hear him every day from 1 to 3 right here on KSL News Radio. And we're going to talk about the millions and millions and millions of Americans who've already cast their ballot, either in person or by mail. Earlier this morning, Dave and I were talking about this out of the gates at 9 a.m. when the show started, and it was at about 14 million votes cast.
And what stood out to me there, Boyd, is comparing it back to the last presidential election back in 2020, that's about 9% of the vote that is already in. Like if we're going to have the same numbers that come out, but about 9-10% of the vote in the first week, which tells me people are pretty sure where they wanted to go. This wasn't like that movable middle that's waiting to the last minute, right?
Yeah, these are definitely the base of the party, but these are important ones to bank. If you're a campaign, you want to bank votes. And so if you know that 10% of this county or this particular district is already voted, that's a good thing because you got your base out, you got things going. And it's one of the things that's been very fascinating to watch over the last several presidential cycles is we've had more mail-in, more early voting options. It changes the strategy in terms of how you use campaign cash going down the stretch, because no longer is it, hey, I'm going to do those really hard-hitting ads the last 5 days before the election, because if you do it then, you may have missed some of those that maybe you could have persuaded.
Well, it tells me millions of Americans already had their minds made up. They've cast their ballot. And as Adam Gardner, KSL at Night host, pointed out when we were talking about this in the 9 o'clock hour, is so much for October surprises now, because if votes have already been cast, maybe those October surprises that we've seen in past elections don't matter so much.
Yeah,
right?
It definitely changes the dynamic because if you've already cast your vote, which is a good thing and a potentially bad thing, Because think about that. If you had a major scandal of some sort or a major global event or something, if those votes are already cast, those cannot be changed. You're done. You've cast your vote. And while I don't think that is typically what happens, and most October surprises really don't move the needle all that much in the end. And so I'm not overly worried about that. But it is something to always keep in mind of is having this long of a voting period, is that really the best thing? And I think that actually leads to some other important conversations about should we have elections that are perpetual? If you're a member of Congress, the moment you get to November 6th this year, you are up for re-election. And you are running even before you get sworn in. And so it's perpetual. And so I think there is a space for a conversation of a more European style. Do you take 6 weeks or 3 months or something, and that becomes the election cycle, as opposed to election cycles that are really lasting from election to election 2 years at a time?
It's incredible where you start seeing just the amount of money that is going into these coffers, where it is no longer a season of fundraising. It is fundraising from day one of being sworn in till the very end. And that all of a sudden, that's draining oxygen in the room where they could be doing their job, what they've been elected to do.
Radical stuff.
I know this is wild, but is there any sort of appetite or a mechanism to put in place where we could create better boundaries of when you could run and when you could fundraise?
Yeah, I think the fundraising is the key to that, because if you're in perpetual cycle, and if you ask any member of Congress, Democrat or Republican, if you'll ask what they dislike most about their job, it's that every week, regardless of what day it is, regardless of what season it is, they're fundraising. You have to do it constantly, and often that gets in the way of good governing. And so I do think controlling the periods in terms of when fundraising can happen, that's a great way to say, hey, we're going to change the dynamic in terms of what we think you ought to be focusing on and where your time ought to be spent in terms of doing the job that we elected you to actually do.
These 14 million early votes that NBC News is reporting, well, it's almost 14 million. It's just a snapshot in time. Certainly this will go up, right, each day.
By the minute.
But Boyd, as you are analyzing this, what does this mean for each presidential candidate in terms of maybe spending or where they're going to spend the final days on the campaign trail?
Yeah, so this becomes we talk about all the targeting and the specialization that we have in our consumer world, and it's becoming the same in our political world. Because now people know, well, let's see, if we've got 18% of Georgia voters have already voted, then do I really need to spend all that money in Georgia? Who do I need to target in Georgia? And so it becomes more and more specialized in terms of the messaging. This is one this year that's interesting. Obviously, Vice President Harris has a massive cash advantage over former President Trump. But with the number of early votes that are happening, the meaning of that is far less because, you can keep doing ads in places to people that have already voted, and it might make you feel good that you're spending that money, but it's not really moving the needle. And so the fact that we have all this early voting changes the dynamic and the advantage that a campaign with a lot of cash actually has coming down the stretch.
I was telling Debbie earlier today, this was my aha moment, because typically I always fill out my ballot early, and then I always drop it off on voting day. It's straight procrastination. Nothing other than just straight procrastination. But I fill it out several days in advance. But I thought if I filled it out today and I dropped it off, every single political ad that goes on from here, I can ignore.
Yeah.
I can just tune out because, the hay's in the barn. It is a done deal. I thought, you know what, that in and of itself would be such a welcome breath of fresh air for me that I think I'm going to do that very thing. And I wonder if we're just becoming more and more comfortable with voting by mail, dropping it off, and not necessarily waiting for the full aha moment, climax of here's voting day. That's when we're voting.
Yeah, and I think there is something to that exhale moment that you just described. And a lot of people across the country are hoping to have that kind of moment. Say, okay, I don't have to worry about the drama that's unfolding on cable news. When I go onto social media, I can just ignore all of these things. That's a pretty freeing moment, actually. And I actually think that's good because it means you did your job, you did your duty, you studied it out, and you cast your vote, and now you get to do what we all have to do on the first Wednesday of November, and that is move on. Keep living your life, working your job, raising your family, helping your neighbor, making a difference in your community. And so I think there is something to. I've already done my ballot's all filled out. I'm going to drop it in this afternoon, and there is an exhale. There's a freeing component to that. I've done my duty. I've done the very best I can, and I'm sending a message. I'm expressing what I think is important in all of these votes. Whether I voted for a Democrat, a Republican, a third-party candidate, or I wrote someone's name in, I have expressed what I think is important in this election cycle. And then you can exhale, and then you move on. That's what we're supposed to do.
Do the candidates, though, move on? Because I know we talked about, they shift spending. Do they buy less commercial time in one state or the other? But is there a mentality of like we're going to milk this for every single vote we can possibly milk?
Yeah.
Particularly in the swing states.
Yeah.
Right?
The political consultants are going to milk every single one of those dollars. They're going to make sure all of those get used, and they're going to make very convincing cases to their candidates of, I think we need to spend a little more down the stretch. They'll make that case, and so we'll see it. But it will start to shift. The further we go over the next week to 8 days, really. So when we're about a week out, then you're going to start seeing some of that money really start to shift. I think both candidates on the top of the ticket, they're going to continue to do big rallies to just show they have momentum and that people love them. You'll see some wild stuff. We always call this silly season, and so you'll have former President Trump, doing French fries at McDonald's, and you'll have Kamala Harris, going on some podcaster to talk about something unique, and all of that is just silly season and a distraction. But what it does is it keeps the candidates busy. I will tell you, there is nothing worse on this planet than a caged up, holed up, nothing to do candidate 2 weeks out from election.
Who's waiting for results.
And that's why you'll often see them on election day. You will see them out doing honkin' waves on the street. There is zero purpose and there is zero impact, but it keeps the candidate busy for 8 hours, and it helps the campaign staff do what they need to do in terms of get out the vote effort.
You can't have them pent up and then all of a sudden put a microphone in and think something good's going to happen.
It never ends well.
We're gonna release some of that tension. Boyd, thank you so much for joining us. Inside Sources, again, every day, 1 to 3.
We're going to check in to see how a turnout is going here in parts of Utah. We got the Salt Lake County clerk calling the show next.
Dave and Dujanovic.
You know KSL is the only news radio for your car, right?
The only news radio for your smart speaker.
Come here in the morning. It's the latest news and traffic. In the afternoon, news and updated weather.
We have you covered at KSL News Radio.
We're just 14 days away from the historic 2024 election.
I'm running for governor because you deserve partisanship, not unchecked power.
It's been an honor of a lifetime to serve as your governor. We've accomplished so much together.
Do your homework and get your ballot in the mail. Election week is coming, and we have you covered on KSL News Radio.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
slow it down and get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or avacincaptad pagel is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
I finally decided a few months ago that enough was enough with the high electrical bills in the summer and the high heating bills in the winter, and it was time to replace our builder-grade windows of our 20-year-old home with the latest and greatest windows from Advanced Window Products. Ever since Jake and Nate showed me a demonstration of what a difference the right kind of window can have on my home's energy use, I couldn't get it off my mind. So my wife and I decided it was time, And man, am I glad we did. From the moment Ken showed up to give us a free in-home estimate, we've had such an outstanding experience through the entire process. Within an hour, we had financing set up, and then about 8 weeks later, the crew showed up and did what we thought was going to be a 2-day installation in a single day. Now our home is more comfortable. Our electrical bills have started to drop. We qualified for energy tax credits to help pay for the windows. And we even took advantage of their expertise and replaced our sliding glass deck door with one that has a pet door built in. Look, I know you don't make a decision like this on a whim. You do your research. So do that. But make sure you call Advanced Window Products at 801-850-9100, and you can get a special deal of $3,000 off 10 windows or more if you mention Andy when you make the appointment. 801-850-9100 or go to advancedwindows.com.
Any Hour Services free furnace sale is going on right now. If you haven't scheduled your free estimate yet, what are you waiting for? Call Any Hour Services today or schedule online at anyhourservices.com.
Let me ask you a question. You have a best friend? How big would it shock you if somebody told you that your best friend just killed somebody?
911, what's your emergency? Someone on the other line said they kidnapped my son, and they're demanding $500,000.
On September 12th, 1995, 12-year-old McKay Everett disappeared from his home in Conroe, Texas. It was a crime that shocked the community because the suspect was so unlikely, so unexpected.
Former high-ranking police official, he'd run for sheriff at one point.
Law enforcement personnel were pretty much split down the middle over whether or not he actually did this.
And to this day, McKay's mother, Paulette, still feels that justice was never truly served.
I've asked myself so many times, what in the world happened?
Ransom is available now. Listen at ransompodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, a woman who stole a car at gunpoint at Bridalveil Falls has been arrested. Second, the U.S. Secretary of Defense is in Kyiv today promising to supply the aid that Ukraine needs to win its war with Russia. And third, far fewer young people are voting early in this election compared to older voters. 59 degrees, partly cloudy in Salt Lake City. Back to Dave and Dujanovic on KSL News Radio.
Dave and Dujanovic.
We're just talking to Boyd Matheson, having a insightful conversation about what this near 14 million early votes means for the presidential candidates. 14 million early votes almost cast across the United States. And in a moment, we're going to find out how voter turnout is going in Utah.
And I think as I'm looking at these numbers, and this is comparing it back to 2020, but this is about 10% of the vote that got cast right out of the gate in the first week. Is this typical? Is this kind of the ramp up in the new world we live in? Because there is no longer a single election day. November 5th, everybody show up to vote. No, this is happening 3 weeks before. And then that November 5th day comes along. That is just the last day of voting, the final, the 21, the day 21 of voting. Not day one.
What we do know is that these 14 million or so voters have made up their minds. They've either mailed or in their ballot, or they've cast it in person. And so they've made a decision on who they're voting for and what issues they're voting in favor of or against. What we don't know is if the enthusiasm that we seem to have right now, at least in this snapshot in time, will stick for the next couple of weeks. We also don't know how voter turnout is going in Salt Lake County. So great time to have Salt Lake County Clerk Lanny Chapman live on the line. Good morning.
Good morning.
How is turnout looking so far in Salt Lake County, Lanny?
You know, it is looking like a presidential election. We've received already, and this is as of Friday, so it doesn't count the stuff that we received this weekend or today. We received over 10,000 ballots already. So we're almost at 2% of Salt Lake County voters having participated. Now remember, like I said, we haven't counted anything we received this weekend or today. That number is going to go up exponentially. We received a ton of by-mail ballots through the post office and, of course, our drop boxes this morning. And we start early voting tomorrow. So I anticipate quite a few people preparing to vote early.
When you say early voting, is that in-person voting?
So both. So when I'm talking about tomorrow, it is in-person early voting, correct?
Lanny, do you have any idea at this point if you're seeing a heavier turnout from Republicans or Democrats? And the reason I'm asking is because on the NBCnews.com site, when I look at that, they have analyzed the votes or how many early and mail-in ballots have been cast across the country, and they put it at almost 14 million. It does break down by political party which, political party has had the greater turnout. Do you track that here in Salt Lake County?
Right now we're just busy trying to process everything. After the election, we'll be able to break down the numbers like that.
Yeah.
Historically, Democrats do vote early. However, the GOP has done a really good job of reminding voters to bank their ballot, to make sure that their voice is heard and that they've done it before Election Day. And I'm seeing a lot of excitement all around Salt Lake County, all voters wanting to make sure that their voice is heard and that their ballot, their by-mail ballot, is part of that election night results.
Lanny, what are some of the things you want voters to be aware of when they receive their mail-in ballot? What are some of the biggest errors or mistakes that they will make that might slow down the processing?
Sure. Couple things. One, and this is a big one. This is the first time Salt Lake County has ever seen a 2-card ballot. So I'm talking 2 separate pieces of paper, front and back, with candidates, judges, and questions on them. This is a lot longer than any ballot we've seen, frankly, in known history. It's going to take us just a little bit longer. However, because it's going to take the voters longer to process it, it's going to take my team that much longer to scan the ballots to get them prepared for tabulation. So as soon as people are ready to vote, I would strongly encourage them to return their ballots to me so I can start processing them. Couple things to keep in mind. Of course, you want to make sure that you sign the affidavit on the back of the envelope. We have a ton of signatures from each registered voter and frankly, in the state of Utah. So sign it the way that you would normally sign it. We have access to your driver's license signatures. So if you forget what your signature looks like, take a peek at your driver's license to look at that signature. Remember to turn it in as early as you can so that we can process those ballots. And I'm not just talking Salt Lake County, I'm talking statewide, so that we can process those ballots and have them available at that 8 p.m. election night results website.
And that these results, the votes, the tallies don't get released until after polls close on Election Day, correct?
That is absolutely correct. The systems that we use are hardened so that even if we wanted to peek, we couldn't peek. They do not allow us to see how people have voted until that 8 p.m. election night results.
Lanny Chapman, thanks. Best of luck. I know these 3 weeks especially are very intensive for the county clerks out there. So thank you for joining us. Again, that was Salt Lake County Clerk Lanny Chapman.
I just want to make a point of if you want to track your ballot, which is what I do. Do you track your ballot, Dave?
Yeah, I got text alerts.
Yeah, exactly. Text and I believe I got email alerts. You can do this through vote.utah.gov. It is super slick. I'm one of those, Dave, who voted early. I joined our colleague here at Broadcast House, Adam Gardner, who's a KSL at Night host. He called the show early. It sounded like he has the ballot on the counter and he votes right away. I didn't want to put it off, so I voted already. And it just tracks your ballot. It gives you the alerts and lets you know that your ballot's been received, your vote's been counted, and that's at vote.utah.gov. And you can even set the time frame when you want to be notified. Here's a pro tip. Don't set the time frame that they can notify you like at 7 a.m. I'm just telling you right now.
You don't want that wake-up call? Let me sleep in, for heaven's sake.
You randomly get a text alert, your phone goes off, and it tells you that your ballot's been received. And I'm just saying that information is still good information at 10 a.m. when you're wide awake. But it's just another measure that Utah has put in place that we can track our ballots if you drop them off at a ballot box or you drop them off at a mail facility.
I will be very interested to see, and I'm not entirely certain how, was it NBC that got all these early turnout numbers and the breakdown, because you were able to break it down, or they were able to break it down on such a granular level, for, by gender, by age, by political party. And the political party aspect is what stood out to me. Of the 14 million mail-in ballots that have already been cast and counted, 46% Democrat, 29% Republican. So almost a 20% difference between Democrats and Republicans. I think in part because Republicans, specifically former President Donald Trump, has really badmouthed and questioned mail-in balloting across the country. And there has been a little bit of a shift recently where you'll hear Republicans saying, get your vote in early, make sure you vote, get it out there, and don't just wait until Election Day.
And then to that granular data, far more 65-year and older voters have voted. It's at 38% of that 14 million. Then comes my age category, 50 to 64, we're at 23%. Dave's age demographic at 13%, 40 to 49-year-olds. That surprised me, Dave.
We're just barely beating the 18-year-olds. I mean, as much as I want to call us, to step up, I haven't sent mine in yet either. So I'm part of the problem. And
yeah, you all are booked and busy in your 40s. And then 30 to 39-year-olds bested the 40 to 49-year-olds, only 14% as well. But again, as I've said repeatedly throughout the show, for context, this is a snapshot in time that is just as of when NBC News published that information. I caught it last night on their website. This number will go up, and the percentages will likely shift along the way. So we'll continue to track that, of course, right up until Election Day, and then you can hear the full results right here on KSL News Radio. And in fact, I encourage you now to sign up for our text alerts by texting news to 57500. It is on election night when the polls close. That is how I am first alerted that the first results are dropping, is thanks to our friends here at KSL News Radio who send out those text alerts.
It's 11:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bonas. KSL's top local story this hour. Early voting doesn't seem to be so popular among the younger voters. Only 5%, 18 to 29-year-olds, have cast ballots so far. KSL at Night host Adam Gardner tells Dave and Dujanovic, not surprising, but some other voter turnout numbers are.
A lot of the millennials are just feeling really bummed out about the political process because it's not maybe representing either side.
Gardner says 13 million early votes have been cast in total across the country, with Democrats in swing states leading that count. Your money at this moment, the top national story this hour from ABC News. Starting next year, every public classroom in Louisiana will be required by law to have the 10 Commandments prominently displayed. ABC's Jim Ryan says supporters and opponents of the new statute will make their arguments for and against the law to a federal judge today.
One of the biggest backers of Louisiana's new law is Governor Jeff Landry.
If you want to respect the rule of law, you got to start from the original lawgiver, which was Moses.
Organizations like the Freedom from Religion Foundation argue that
our nation was the first to separate religion from government.
The foundation's Annie Laurie Gaylor. Jim Ryan, ABC News.
Now, looking at your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average is down 308 points on the day so far. The NASDAQ has crossed into positive territory, but just barely, less than 1 point. And at KSL weather, looks like sunshine and cool temperatures through the week. That's next. KSL News Time, 11:32.
We hope you have the right app on your phone for news. You probably have dozens.
But the KSL News Radio app, well, it makes our live stream super easy.
Plus, our talk shows are right there as podcast for your workday.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
Debbie and I were just talking about water softeners and just the heavy bags, the 40-pound bags, 50-pound bags of rock salt, the pellets that you've got to load into your trunk and then take it out and then load it into your water softener. It's part of the reason why I love my Connecticut water softener and how efficient it is. It uses 2/3 less salt than normal water softeners. So instead of having to load it up every month, you can do it, every couple of months. And when I'm loading it up, I do it about 3 months at a time. That's how long it takes me. I load up my salt, and then I don't have to touch it for another 3 months because the Connecticut water softener is so highly efficient. It just keeps producing 24/7 soft water for all my family's needs. So if you're interested in getting some soft water into your home, go ahead and reach out to Connecticut of Utah. They are an authorized Connecticut dealer, 801-576-8600. That's a great way to get a hold of them. 801-576-8600. Or, of course, you can check them out online at softwaterutah.com.
This Friday, join KSL News Radio and NPS from 10 to 1 as the movie show stops by. Then, browse and uncover what makes NPS so great. With 4 locations, NPS takes a new inventory every day. Then, they check all competitors' retail pricing before marking items down 20 to 70% off. You're invited to visit the movie show this Friday from 10 to 1. And that's the first step to discovering NPS. Visit npsstore.com to begin your own NPS adventure. npsstore.com.
My name is Brian King, and I'm running to be your governor because Utah is headed in the wrong direction, and we can do so much better. If you're frustrated by politics today, if you feel like politicians aren't listening to you, if you're looking for something different, for a leader who prioritizes common sense and bipartisanship, you have a place with us in this campaign. Join us and vote for Brian King for governor by November 5th. For the better.
Paid for by Brian for Utah.
Taking a look now at traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. And here's Mark Christiansen.
Well, for those who are downtown, Salt Lake City PD has cleared an accident at 8th East and 100 South, but we do have crews doing the final clearing of a crash in Wasatch County. This is on Highway 40. It's about halfway between Main Street and River Road, but I'm not seeing any delays. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
And our temperatures warm into the mid-70s by Wednesday, then drop back into the 60s on Thursday. No chance of rain this week. And right now, 61 degrees, mostly cloudy. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Dave and Dujanovic, your morning companions for talk, analysis, and key perspectives on Utah's biggest stories on KSL News Radio.
We want to do a follow-up right now on a case that has just absolutely rocked an entire community in Cottonwood Heights. Certainly also the community that is the Utah National Guard as well, because the Utah National Guard, a guardsman, Matthew Johnson, was allegedly killed and murdered. Murder charges have been filed, killed by his wife. These are allegations. She has been formally charged as of just a few days ago. And now we don't know if police have yet found his body.
And part of what bothers me so much about this, Debbie, is there's a lot of questions of how that could happen. Matthew Johnson, how you get the body, practically speaking, this woman, was she able to drag this body into a vehicle, take him out into the desert or, into the swamp, whatever it might be, to dispose of this body? And then how do you do that? Well, that's a big question mark. That's not an easy physical thing to do. So it brings in the next level of questioning I have is, was there somebody helping her? Was there an accomplice? Because it just is such a strange practical thing to be able to dispose of this body. I can't help but think that there's going to be other people involved.
And a lot of this
total supposition, by the way.
A lot of what we know about this, according to the charges, happens towards the end of September, when Matthew Johnson is reported missing. In other words, or another way, he didn't show up at work. According to the Utah National Guard, they contact police on September 25th to report he has not shown up to work, and then a few days later, his wife reported her estranged husband is missing to police, while stating that she had not seen or heard from him since September 20th, when they had an argument. Which leads us to our KSL legal analyst, Greg Skordas, who's live on the line with us. And we don't believe at this point, although we are checking regularly with police, Greg, that Matthew Johnson's body has been found yet. How critical is it to the case, as this case moves forward in court, that his body be recovered?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's important. It's very important, but it's not critical, and it's not dispositive of the case. So in a court of law, in a criminal case, the government needs to prove its case, what we call beyond a reasonable doubt. So they can put on circumstantial evidence of his death, such as blood found at the scene, such as the fact that no one has seen or heard from him in over a month. And by the time it gets to trial, it will be well over a year. And the fact that he would have maintained communication with certain individuals and done certain things. There's also, if you read the probable cause statement, some information from the defendant's, sounds like boyfriend, that she had made some statements to him that are very incriminating. So there's probably enough evidence there for the state to put on a good homicide case. But yes, it would be a better case if they not only had a body so they could show that there, in fact, was a homicide, but they could also show that he was murdered. That is, that there's a gunshot wound or something like that that caused his death.
Greg, I look back and I think back to two other cases that were quite infamous. The Mark and Lori Hacking case, where Lori Hacking, who had been murdered by Mark Hacking, she was eventually found. But then you have Josh and Susan Powell, where Susan's body never was recovered. And as tragically as that story ended with Josh murdering his sons and killing himself, not having a body seemed to have played a vital role in Josh staying free.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, David. Not having a body made both of those cases more difficult to prosecute. Of course, Mark Hacking was prosecuted while his wife was being looked for. In fact, she was found. He was convicted, or he pled guilty. Anyway, he's in prison. And Josh Powell killed himself. So, yeah, I mean, we see these periodically around the country where we have missing persons, and they're missing for such a period, and there's such other evidence surrounding the missing of their body with other like forensic evidence, eyewitness evidence of people seeing people move crates and boxes and things like that, that you could expect a jury to assume that something happened. And I think that they'll probably be able to at least put on a fairly good case on this matter, this Cottonwood Heights homicide as well.
Yeah. KSL.com's Pat Reevy has been following this story, reported last week that Jennifer Gledhill was charged last week with murder, accused of killing her estranged husband as he slept. And we do know that she had been arrested on October 2nd in this case, Greg. There is a critical piece of there's a digital footprint here I want to talk about for just a moment that certainly would help possibly the people who are searching, the law enforcement officers who are searching for Matthew Johnson's body, to pinpoint location, although it may be a pretty expansive location, because according to the district attorney's office, which issued a news release on this case, there was GPS data from the defendant's phone that shows on the day that she told the informant that she had killed her husband. The defendant traveled to where her husband's truck was later found around 6 a.m., and they've got data, that GPS data, likely maybe from her cell phone or some other digital device, that put her in the Davis County area, and, pinpointed her at other locations as well. This might certainly help them narrow down the search area, although that can, at least they maybe perhaps know to start searching or search in the Davis County area, although that's a huge area too.
Yeah, and in a case like this, Debbie, the police have no choice but to continue searching, to follow every lead possible, because if you do go to trial and the defense says, well, what work did you do to try to find the body? And they say, well, we gave up after October 10th or something like that, that tends to create more doubt in the jury's mind that, hey, maybe there is somebody out there. So, yeah, law enforcement's going to look everywhere humanly possible. They're going to follow all the what we call CSI evidence, the cell phone tracking, the GPS, that type of thing, and they will follow every lead they can up until the jury's actually sitting in the jury box hearing the trial.
Greg, thank you so much for joining us. KSL legal analyst Greg Skordas.
There's a lot more information in this news release and also in the charging documents. They said they also captured the defendant's vehicle on camera at a gas station on Highland Drive in Salt Lake County, and the defendant was thoroughly cleaned the car, and it opened all the doors, and that she left the car wash shortly after 11 p.m. So there is certainly evidence that police, law enforcement has been able to compile. The question is now, what is happening with this case in court? Our Eric Cabrera has been in court this morning tracking the latest developments in the murder case involving Jennifer Gledhill. And again, the search for Matthew Johnson, her estranged husband's body, still underway. So let's check in with Eric in 4 minutes on the latest developments in this case.
Dave and Dujanovic.
Dave and Debbie go out of their way to make sure you hear all sides of a story.
They're working the phones to get several viewpoints on for you.
Hi, it's Tim and Amanda. We get you the full story, too.
We have you covered on KSL News Radio.
What was that? That is business phone bliss with the Ooma Cloud phone system. It handles all our voice, video, and messaging needs.
You sound very...
Calm? I am. Ooma has everything I need to run my business more efficiently, like virtual receptionist, call routing, and video conferencing. And it starts at just $19.95 per month per user, plus taxes and fees.
Ooma.
Nice. Find your business calm at ooma.com/radio.
The smarter way to clean your floors. It's time to make the swap. Swiffer Power Mop.
Introducing the new Swiffer Power Mop, the all-in-one tool that gives you a mop and bucket clean in half the time. The solution's built right in, so no heavy bucket, and the pad has hundreds of scrubbing strips to get deep into grout. Don't mop harder, mop smarter.
Swiffer Power Mop. Swiffer Power Mop.
In a world where ugly siding, leaky gutters, and inefficient windows are sapping homeowners of their will to live, one company must save us all. This year, join RGS Exteriors as it embarks on a mission to eliminate outdated home exteriors, one Utah home at a time. Every plank of old, ugly siding must be replaced. Every leaky gutter must be eradicated. Every inefficient, energy-sapping window must be vanquished. Once and for all. Begin your epic remodeling quest by calling RGS Exteriors for a free estimate. Discover how a heroic team of experts will save your siding, gutters, or windows for a fair, no-nonsense price. Call RGS Exteriors at 801-280-3110 or journey online to rgsexteriors.com. RGS Exteriors, coming soon to a home near you.
This is Derek Miller speaking on business. Since 2012, the Utah Clean Air Partnership, or UCARE, has been at the forefront of improving Utah's air quality. By empowering others to take action, UCARE is driving meaningful change for cleaner, healthier air across the state. Executive Director Lindsay Smith joins us with more.
UCARE is dedicated to helping individuals, businesses, and communities make small changes to improve Utah's air. Every small change contributes to a bigger positive impact. UCARE accomplishes our work through educational programs and messaging campaigns, grants that support innovative solutions, and fostering partnerships with a broad network of organizations. While Utah's air quality has improved over the last 30 years, we still have work to do to reduce emissions that lead to winter inversions and summertime ozone. In Salt Lake County, our homes and our cars account for roughly 70% of the emissions that negatively impact air quality. This means that we, as individuals, have the power to make a real difference in the quality of the air we breathe through simple actions such as reducing idling, taking public transit, trip chaining, walking or biking, and more. We contribute to the health, economic prosperity, and well-being of the communities in which we live.
UCARE knows that even the smallest actions can spark bigger movement, leading to cleaner air, healthier communities, a stronger economy, and a better quality of life for everyone. Find out how you can make a difference at ucare.org. I'm Derek Miller with the Salt Lake Chamber, speaking on business.
Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson.
Our goal every day on Inside Sources is to help you divide the rage from the reason, elevate the conversation, connect the dots, and make the news make sense in your world. We have conversations with great thinkers, with great leaders, and great people who are just out there making a difference in the world. Now, we do talk about politics, but only so we can discuss society and culture. And then we explore society and culture so we can discuss principles and the people in America and the state of Utah who actually live them and apply them every day. We bring the best and brightest minds to the state of Utah, and we love to take the Utah model and send it out to our nation's capital and beyond. Every day on Inside Sources, you'll be part of that conversation. To help you understand things in a different way, we'll get you to think again about what you think you know. But most important, we're going to help you have confidence to have crucial conversations in your community and in your own home.
Join Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson, 1 to 3 on KSL News Radio.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, older voters are the most likely to vote early in this election. Young voters, not so much. Second, a federal court in Louisiana will hear arguments today challenging the state law that requires the 10 Commandments to be displayed in every public school classroom. And third, it's called the Orange Line. A new tracks train could be finished by the Winter Olympics 10 years from now. Right now, 61 degrees, partly cloudy in Salt Lake City. Back to Dave and Dujanovic on KSL News Radio.
Dave and Dujanovic.
We've been tracking the developments of a murder case of a Cottonwood Heights man who also served in the Utah National Guard for a number of years. His wife, his estranged wife, has been charged with 1 count of first-degree felony murder, 5 counts of obstruction of justice, along with other charges as well. And our understanding is she was in court earlier this morning.
Yeah, accused of killing him in his sleep and later disposing his body in what has been described as a shallow grave. Eric Cabrera joins us right now from KSL News Radio. Eric, was this is one of her first appearances in court, correct?
Dave, that's right. She appeared actually virtually in front of, obviously, attorneys representing both sides, as well as Judge Scott Matheson, just about a couple hours ago.
What went on in the hearing? What can you tell us, Eric?
Yeah, Debbie. So, the main topic of discussion was a protective order for her 3 kids who are 11, 7, and 5. The attorney representing the state basically was citing that they have concerns that similar cases have shown, minor children have been attacked or murdered by the defendant. And so that was kind of their argument as to why they wanted a protective order.
Can you clarify that a little bit more? I wasn't quite following you on that. So they were just concerned about her children's safety, but her children are safe, right?
Yeah, and that's what's interesting, right? I kind of had that question as well, which was, where are the children now? That was something that wasn't really brought up. Those details were not revealed. And her attorney, made the argument that they're not listed as alleged victims. So why are they asking for this? And he called it heavy-handed, is what he said.
She is not out on bail, correct? And she hasn't been awarded any kind of bail.
That's right, Dave. And that was also kind of the argument right from her attorney, which was, this would be visitation at best, if she was allowed to see them. And he doesn't see how she could be a danger if, once again, she's not out on bail.
So the restraining order, sorry, Debbie, to cut you off there. So the restraining order would prevent the children from visiting her in jail, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And Judge Scott Matheson did end up going forward with that as of today. And he said basically until the case moves forward and is in the hands of Judge Mao, who is going to be over this case.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for checking in with us. Eric Cabrera live with us. He was covering the initial court appearance of 41-year-old Jennifer Gledhill, who has been charged with murder in the case of her estranged husband, Matthew Johnson. His body, from what we know, has yet to be recovered. Eric will have much more in a follow-up report coming up here at noon with Maria. Greg Skordas, our KSL legal analyst, joining us just a few moments ago. We asked him specifics about, the search for the body and how critical it is for law enforcement and the district attorney to recover Matthew Johnson's body as the case moves forward.
There's probably enough evidence there for the state to put on a good homicide case, but yes, it would be a better case if they not only had a body so they could show that there in fact was a homicide, but they could also show that he was murdered. That is, that there's a gunshot wound or something like that caused his death.
Another thing that we have learned through some of this reporting from Pat Reevy of KSL.com is that Gledhill, so Jennifer Gledhill, who's been accused of murdering her husband Matthew Johnson, that she confessed to a man she was having an affair with, according to the charging documents, and then that man contacted police.
And they also have, according to the district attorney, GPS tracking information from the defendant's cell phone, Gledhill's cell phone, that could certainly help them perhaps isolate an area that needs to be searched. Our team of reporters and producers are tracking all of the latest developments on this case throughout the day and, of course, throughout the days ahead as the search continues for Matthew Johnson's body.
And what is interesting about GPS data, or if they're tracking phone data, sometimes it can be so incredibly specific. It can break down how long you were in an area. It could even show that you had slowed down and had stopped for just a matter of minutes in certain areas. But it's not always so crystal clear. It just depends on how good that GPS data is and what they're able to glean from that information.
Yeah, stay tuned for more with Maria at noon and, of course, with Jeff this afternoon starting at 3 p.m.
Your voice, your vote, 2024. Special coverage on KSL News Radio.
Earlier in the 11 o'clock hour, we were speaking live with Salt Lake County Clerk Lanny Chapman because we were pretty enamored throughout the show with the near 14 million Americans who have cast their ballots for this election cycle, either by mail or in person, which Dave pointed out is 9% of all who voted in the last presidential election cycle. Lanny Chapman of Salt Lake County, she's Salt Lake County Clerk's Office, cited the number as of Friday because they hadn't had a chance to go through and count the ballots they've received over the weekend at around 10,000 ballots in Salt Lake County.
Right, and that was about 2%, she said, of the expected, or 2% of the registered voters. So it will be interesting to see what the turnout is. In off-year elections, it can be 30 or 40% of people, of registered voters, that turn out. But a presidential election can be very good. It can be much higher, in the 70s and 80%. And it will be interesting to see if this presidential election has that same kind of energy for people to turn out if we're talking about 80% of people showing up or even 90% in some areas?
We won't know, of course, the results until after the polls close. That's when they release them. But in the meantime, we were speaking with Adam Gardner of KSL at Night. He's also a political insider. He's been involved in politics for many, many years. He joined the show in the 9 o'clock hour to talk about what these early voting numbers mean, if they mean anything. He said initially his at first blush, at least at this snapshot in time, it does appear that, Democrats are turning out in higher numbers than Republicans, which could mean good things for Kamala Harris and her campaign. However, things are certainly likely to change over the coming days and weeks as we move closer to the election and could shift in the favor of the Republicans and former President Donald Trump's campaign. And he also talked about the Democrats, traditional Democrats and traditional Republicans are now sort of switching who they're voting for.
What we've seen over the last few years, however, is that Democrats and Republicans are kind of switching their base of support. And so suburban women, especially suburban white women that have normally gone for Republicans, are moving to Democrats. And African Americans, Hispanics, usually in lockstep with the Democratic Party, are switching more and more over to the Republican Party.
And there have been changes, I think, which will be very interesting after the election to see how it breaks down and see where all that support came from. But as you said, Debbie, this is a snapshot in time. That's a great way to describe it, because I'm as reliable a voter as there is out there, but I've never voted in the first week or two. I always vote and I drop it off on election day. And maybe I'll do it differently this time, but this is just a snapshot of some voters that want to get it in as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I've already voted.
And you're one of those folks.
Well, partly because this has been a really long election cycle.
Yes.
We've been paying attention to it for more than a year now, and it does kind of feel good to have my responsibility as an American, at least what I consider to be one of my primary responsibilities as an American, done at least for right now. Of course, Maria Chaleos up next, as we've been talking about the last half hour, with much more details on the first court appearance of Jennifer Gledhill, who has been charged with murder. Maria and our team with more straight ahead.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Good afternoon. KSL News Time is 12 o'clock noon.